Great Tribal Chief. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1, Silly Head. By the side of the quiet river valley, there are more than 20 houses made of wood scattered around. These wooden houses have a large floor area, but they look very strange, because the roofs are all covered with bark, and there are doors but no windows, and the roofs have chimneys. The shrubs that are tall and half a meter wide with spikes form a circle, which surrounds this small village like a city wall. These thorny bushes seem to be good at blocking the sneak attacks of wild wolves and other ferocious animals. This is the time when the sun sets. The red sunset hanging to the west not only dyes the western half of the sky red, but also dyes this peaceful river valley a dark red dot. Curling smoke rises in the setting sun. More than a dozen women who have just returned from the farm are busy picking up dinner, and more than a dozen 7- or 8-year-old children are running wildly. It seems that only this kind of activity can completely take them all over. His energy was completely vented, and several sturdy men were sitting around a corner of the village smoking pipes together. River valleys, villages, the setting sun in the west, and the casual people. All these constitute a beautiful painting. However, if you look closer, you will immediately find some unusual places, because the people here, whether it is a child running wild, a woman returning from work, and the guy sitting around smoking a pipe, clothes and hair accessories are very strange. They all wore clothing made of animal skins, shaking their heads and shaking their heads, and they inadvertently showed blue tattoos on their necks, and they had long hair regardless of men and women. This is not a village located in a remote hillside of a barren mountain. This is a primitive Indian tribe that is rarely seen in the modern era. Although everything here is so peaceful and harmonious, even if this scene is seen by poets in ancient China, there may be another masterpiece similar to Peach Blossom Spring. But in this harmonious and peaceful river valley, no one noticed that in the dense forest not far away, a group of middle-aged men with various colors smeared on their faces and animal skins on their faces were looking with a murderous look that could not be concealed. This small clan village not far away. When the few middle-aged men in the village finished smoking their pipes and returned to the wooden house for dinner, the group of men who had been in ambush in the dense forest for a long time finally attacked. Accompanied by a cry similar to howling a wolf, dense rockets rose from the dense forest, and then fell into this small village with strange howling sounds. The flames mixed with thick smoke suddenly emerged from the wooden houses, and these men in ambush immediately launched an impact on this small village. Dozens of strong men held bone spears, bone knives, wooden sticks and a few steel knives in their hands, or rode horses or ran. The roar of Ohin as well the abnormal noise outside the village suddenly made the originally quiet village seem to be boiling. Although more than a dozen men who ran out of the wooden house also held weapons such as bone spears, bows and arrows, and wooden sticks, their expressions it seemed a little caught off guard. After seeing the men charging towards the village with their weapons, the eyes of the men who just ran out immediately turned red, and one of the strong men screamed, "It's the Chikasha!" Then, these more than a dozen guys yelled, and ran toward the gap in the bush with the guys who ran out of the wooden house one after another. If you look down from the sky, you can easily see that the number of men running out of the village is far less than the number of sneak attackers, but even so, they are still like moths fighting the fire, facing more than their own. Sneak attackers who have been out several times are invincible. Moreover, people are still pouring out from the wooden houses in the village, but these people who appear afterwards are not strong men, but a group of women and old men, and they also hold all kinds of weird things in their hands. The weapon, howling, followed the men in front of him and rushed towards the gaps in the bushes. Behind them is their home, and there is their hope for the future, children. For all of this, they ignore that the number of enemies is much larger than them, and that they are all strong fighters. The ghost knows what kind of hatred exists between the two sides. Anyway, in the short moment of contact between the two sides, blood sprayed out from the sky, and the sun was sinking in the west. A small but extremely tragic battle broke out suddenly under this poignant sunset. Although the men and women in the village are fighting back, and although they are desperately trying to protect the homeland behind them, the number of enemies on the opposite side is really too many, and they are all men of middle age. If it weren't for the bushes around the village, I'm afraid it's just a shock, and those Chickasaw men can drown this small village. Several sneakers tried to break through the bushes from other locations, but they were pierced with blood, so after weighing them, the sneakers gave up attacking from the position blocked by the bushes, but concentrated their power on several gaps in the bush. The strongest 20-something men in the village divided into two groups and guarded the two largest bush gaps, but suffered heavy casualties. More than a dozen teenagers of 16 or 17 also held weapons and guarded the two smaller gaps in the bushes, but their bravery still couldn't resist the attack of the sneak attackers. A short man did not participate in the resistance, but quickly climbed towards the mountain on the other side of the village. He was like a flexible ape, and soon disappeared in the dense forest on the hillside, and then, the top of this small mountain began to have wolf smoke. That's a signal for help. Among the dozen teenagers who fought hard to resist the invaders, there was a very large and strong person. If it weren't for the greenness on his face, it proved that his age was no different from those of other teenagers. Just by looking at his size, everyone would think he was an adult strong man. He is called Silly Head. He is the largest and strongest man in the village. Even if he is only 16 years old, he is still 2 laps thicker than the strongest man in the village. But it's a pity that this extremely burly boy has a bad head. In other words, he is a bit mentally handicapped. Therefore, he was nicknamed Stupid Head by his friends and clansmen since he was a child. Although Silly Head is a bit mentally retarded, he is holding a thick bone spear in his right hand and a thin-armed wooden stick in his left. He fights alone in the forefront, stuck in the gap. And in front of him, there are 6 big, round Chickasaw men. Bone spears stabbed, bone knives slashed, and there was a thick, a little outrageous wooden stick in the middle that swept and smashed. The Silly Head only felt that he was dying. Even if he was more robust, even if he was strong enough to fight a black bear, but when faced with 6 Chickasaw fighters with rich combat experience, he still felt that I'm afraid I won't last long. The body flashed to the side, the bone spear in his hand pierced out, and it plunged into the neck of a Chickasaw man. When the bone spear was pulled out, a bright red blood sprayed directly on his head. Regardless of wiping the blood on his face, the Silly Head rolled on the spot with a kind of instinct, and escaped the hack of the thick wooden stick that threatened the most, and knocked the stick in the hand the other cut on the man's calf bones, accompanied by the man's miserable cry. The bone spear in the hands of the Silly Head was like a king cobra, pierced diagonally upwards, and pierced the man's lower jaw accurately, cut the lower jaw of the Chickasaw man. This is the 3rd Chickasaw man killed by himself. Although his Silly Head is a bit silly, the number 1, 2 and 3 can still be counted. When the Silly Head turned over and tried to pull the bone spear out of the man Chickasaw's jaw, he was horrified to find that the bone spear was stuck in the bone of that guy. After drawing twice without taking out the bone spear, the Silly Head can only give up the bone spear reluctantly. But again, because of this delay, the thick wooden stick swept across again with strange howling noises. Can't hide. The stupid instinct of his head allows him to clearly distinguish the form, so he decisively raised his left arm and blocked it in front of his temple. Accompanied by a clear and audible click, the wooden stick swept the Silly Head's left forearm severely. The thick arm couldn't resist this strange force at all, and the Silly Head's left forearm immediately became a weird angle. While the remaining power of the wooden stick was not eliminated, with the left forearm that had been completely broken, I'm reading www.hookenshoe.com hit the head of the Silly Head fiercely. Even if the Silly Head turned his head desperately for an instant to avoid the most terrible temple, he still got hit on the top of his head. A touch of bright red stayed from the top of his head in an instant, and the eyes of the Silly Head went black, like a felled tree that fell straight to the ground. Shi Xiong was full of violent spirits, and there was a vague growl in his throat. Where is this? The thought just came up in Shi Xiong's mind, and the pain all over his body drowned him. The head melon seed seemed to be trampled on by a million alpaca madly, and it was as if hundreds of red-hot steel needles plunged into their skulls, and then desperately stirred in their own brains. Both ears have the strange buzzing sound and the sharp whistle sound like when the kettle is turned on. Stupid head, silly head. Is it dead? Is it dead? A burst of sounds that seemed to float from countless light years away rang from Shi Xiong's ears. The sound was so strange that it was neither rounded like in one's native language nor spoken like English or French. That way of pronunciation. Shi Xiong dared to assure Grandpa Mao that he had never heard such language since he was a child. But by the way, this language can be heard clearly, as if he is familiar with his mother tongue, Chinese. P.S. After more than a month, Lao Mo is back. This time, Lao Mo will lead the judges to the North American continent more than 250 years ago, and see how the protagonist led his people to the North American continent. Guys, the new book needs your unselfish support. Don't click or recommend one less. Lao Mo is grateful. Chapter 2, Soulware Indian. There seemed to be two 100-kilogram shot hung on his eyelids. No matter how much Shi Xiong wanted to open his eyes to see who was screaming in his ears, it was such a simple action that couldn't be simpler. At this time, it seemed to become a task that could not be completed at all. The intense pain in his mind and the strong feeling of vomiting made Shi Xiong very aware of how serious his concussion was. At this time, he wanted to yell at the Cadillac that suddenly came out of the alley, words beginning with F, but now he can't even open his eyelids. How can he make a sound? As an associate researcher of a provincial museum in China, I just came to the Appalachian Borderland Museum near Knoxville, Tennessee to visit and study the stone bear. What I didn't expect was that the visit and study took only a few days. I was hit by a Cadillac. The memory in his mind seemed to be constantly shifting between the moment he was hit by the car and the big wooden stick hitting his head, making Shi Xiong not knowing what happened. Silly head, come on, drink some water. If you don't drink some water, I'm afraid you will really die. Come on, drink some water. Those chicashes didn't kill you. If you die of thirst yourself, then but it's really a joke. Accompanied by the voice that sounded not very old but was just like Qin Shi Huang's grandmother, Shi Xiong felt that his lips had suddenly touched something rough and cold. The next moment, his lips were surrounded by a piece of ice. Stand up. Shi Xiong dared to assure Grandpa Deng that he had never thought that water turned out to be so delicious since he was a child. Even if he couldn't open his eyelids, under the control of the little power that burst out under the stimulation of his survival instinct, the stone bear greedily drank several sips of cool and sweet water. The cold and sweet water flowed along the esophagus into the stomach, and Shi Xiong felt that he was completely alive. Great, the leader, the silly head is really not dead, the great Orinda, he is still alive. The cheerful voice sounded again, and Shi Xiong could hear the voice, the kind of joy from the heart. These words just said by the owner of this voice really make Shi Xiong a little bit inexplicable. Stupid head? Who is the stupid head? Could it be me? Shi Xiong, whose thinking was a little confused, was entangled and helpless. Although this messy name was really silly and old, Shi Xiong had to admit, this silly and earthy name is really very likely to belong to him. But the question is, when did I have such a name? Also, what is the leader? Is there such a person as a leader in the United States these days? It seems that the boss of Knoxville should be the mayor, but what is this leader? A slightly heavy footstep approaching here from afar. From the sound of the footsteps Shi Xiong can tell, the owner of this footstep is either a burly guy, or he is also injured. Otherwise this step will not be so heavy. Quick horse, my good boy, is the silly head really not dead? A slightly hoarse voice rang, with a hint of surprise in his tone. Boss, I'm sure that the silly head is not dead. He is so strong. Even if he is alone against a black bear, how can he die easily? The young voice rang. Well, let me look at the silly head. With the sound of this voice, Shi Xiong only felt that his forehead had touched a rough palm, and then this palm stayed on his forehead for a while, and then touched it again. After touching his neck, the voice said happily, yes, the silly head is indeed not dead. Although this kid's head is a bit silly, his life is really hard. He must have got the great Orinda's care. he can survive the injury like this. Boss, the stupid head is not hard, but he is too brave. He faced 6 Chikashas alone, and still killed 3 of them. If it weren't for the stupid head, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to live. It was because of the bravery of the stupid head that blocked the Chikashas, prevented the Chikashas from moving forward, and many of our people survived. After a pause, the tone of the young voice began to become a little worried. Boss, the silly head is hurt like this, can he get better? Don't worry, Kuema, my good boy, the silly head will get better. I promise in the name of the leader of our long-hair cattle tribe that the silly head will get better. However, the silly head needs someone to take care of it. Kuema, my dear boy, can you take care of the silly head? Yes, boss, I promise to take care of the stupid head. The dialogue between the 2 voices is a bit Shinto, but Shi Xiong didn't listen to it. The dialogue between the 2 voices just now made him a little dazed. Chikasa, long-haired cow tribe, leader, fast horse, silly head, and the great Orenda. Damn, this sister's name and name are clearly unique to Indians, and the great Orenda, which is the name of the sun by North American Indians. Especially the Chikasha, this is clearly the Chikasha Indian living in western Tennessee. I only saw information about the Chikasha tribe in the Appalachian Land Museum yesterday, as well as the long-haired cattle tribe. It seems that there is also this small in the Appalachian Land Museum. Introduction of the tribe. It's just that this long-haired cow tribe belonging to the Eastern Cherokee, also called the Cherokee, should have completely disappeared more than 200 years ago. Then what happened to these things that suddenly appeared now? Also, what happened to the battle that I had experienced just now? You guys wouldn't be so unlucky, are you? Is it that after being hit by the Cadillac, my soul traveled to this ghost place and then became attached to the stupid Indian? The more I thought about Shi Xiong, the more horrified he became, even if he was really unwilling to guess in this regard, but all that happened before him seemed to prove that his guess about crossing was true. The messy memory in his mind made Shi Xiong feel that his head was about to explode, as if he had become 2 completely different people in an instant. The entangled and confused thinking made him groan and lose again consciousness. Chapter 3, 1 Decision. The weather in late autumn is often good, so every day, the stone bear can vaguely see the sun poking out from the tip of the mountain on his left hand, and then slowly across the sky, falling into the mountains to the west. The sun rises from the mountains on his left and then sets from his right. This is a whole day. This process continued for 3 times, and then the stone bear who had been lying on a simple sledge made of branches finally accepted the fact that he had traversed. 3 days' time is enough for the memories of his previous life to be completely integrated with the memories of this body, and then Shi Xiong knows that even if he is unwilling, the facts are always not shifted by his own will. He does cross. Because he was going to visit the Appalachian Borderland Museum in his previous life, before coming, Stone Bear viciously made up for the history and knowledge about the Indians of Tennessee, so he now has a general understanding of his own situation. The memory from this new body has clearly told him that this era is exactly the time when those Vasiku are playing lively. Vasiku, the name of North American Indians for European whites, is the era when a group of Wasatchis from England and a group of Wasatchis from France were brains like dogs. Yes, the reason why this body has been called Silly Head by others is really no way, because the former owner of this body is a mentally retarded. Fools are not considered to be a fool, but the mentally retarded is for sure. Well, to use a more vivid metaphor, the former owner of this body is similar to the male protagonist in the American Hollywood movie Forrest Gump. The Forrest Gump with an IQ of only 75. North American Indians often have 3 names in their lives. One is their baby name when they were born, one is their childhood nickname, and the other is the correct name given by the tribal clan. For example, this silly head is named Big Stone. The reason for this name is just because his mother was born next to a big stone when he was born, so this child was born by his mother, a nickname Big Stone. As for the rectification of the clan name, the former owner of the young body who was only 16 years old also had it, when he participated in the first hunting battle of the tribal clan when he was 12 years old. He fought with a half-old black bear with his bare hands, successfully defeated the half-big black bear, so the leader of the tribe Tall Bull kindly gave a very domineering name Big Bear. The meaning is very simple. It is a strong man who can fight against the giant bear with great strength. As for the name Silly Head, it was his childhood nickname, because the former owner of this body was a mentally retarded child like Forrest Gump, so the children around him put the name Silly Head on his head, and has been called from the age of 3 or 4 to 16. This nickname is even more famous than the proper name of his clan. Stone Bear knew very well at this time. When he was visiting the Appalachian Borderland Museum, he was indeed hit by a Cadillac, and his soul traveled through more than 250 years of time and space. Shuttle from 2019 to the middle of the 18th century, finally possessed the dying Indian, succeeded this somewhat mentally handicapped person, and became the new Silly Head. The reason why it is impossible to determine which year has passed is mainly because not only the former owner of this body does not know which year this year is, but even people in the entire tribe do not know which year this year should be in at, but the tribe doesn't have its own year, so Shi Xiong still doesn't know which year this year is. However, according to the memory of the last Silly Head, it is the time when the Vasicus from England beat the Vasicus from France. So the Stone Bear estimated that this year should be the famous one. The end of the 7 Years' War, and even the 7 Years' War, is over. Although it lasted not long, the war that affected the whole of Europe and the major overseas colonies of the European powers was fought extremely fiercely. In Europe, human brains became dog brains. In North America, the 3 countries of Britain, France and West have been fighting for many years of huge colonies. In China, the war also progressed very intensely. In the end, the powerful rising British not only defeated the French in the European continent, but also beat the French to their heads in this emerging colony of North America. If the memory of the former owner of this body is correct, then this year is most likely the last year of the 7 Years' War or the second year after the war has just ended. This discovery made Shi Xiong a little bit excited. Although he was knocked across, he had come to an era that wasn't the worst. At the very least, if this year is really just at the end of the 7 Years' War, then there will be at least 20 years before American independence. During this period of time, it was the period when the 13 colonies in North America were the weakest and the most surging. The British aristocracy from the British Isles on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean issued a series of government decrees, squeezing the colonists of the 13 colonies in North America vigorously. And these people who came to the other side of the ocean who left their homes and properties for a long distance are called colonists if they sound good, and they are ordinary people who can't survive in Europe. Originally, they came to the North American New World with unlimited hope to survive and make money, but they did not expect that even if they fled to the North American New World, they would still be squeezed by the nobles from the country. Where there is oppression, there is resistance. This sentence is still more true than pure gold even in this era. Those nobles on the other side of the Atlantic will not let the criminals or ordinary people escape because they have fled to the New World of North America. On the contrary, because of the ongoing wars on the European continent, these European countries have been overwhelmed. Now that I have finally discovered the New World, and the people of my own country have established a firm foothold there, and the development is pretty good, how can these European nobles let these people go? In the eyes of these European aristocrats, as long as they control the army, even if these ordinary people are far away, they must honestly let themselves be exploited. As a result, this reckless exploitation finally triggered a series of resistance, and finally formed a huge wave sweeping the entire 13 colonies of North America, and then there was another country called the United States in this world. This period of time, it will take about 20 years. Shi Xiong, who has many memories of later generations, made a decision in these 3 days. The North American Indians today are not as miserable as the U.S. alone. Compared with the Vasicus, the current Indians are relatively strong, and even the Vasicus need to win over these Indians. It's just that these North American Indians are a piece of scattered sand. The Indians who have lived on this continent for tens of thousands of years have never formed a unified regime because they have been fighting in their nests. In the end, The Americans who have been alone have been given the opportunity to defeat them. The period between now and before the United States alone is the last and best period of time for North American Indians. Once this period of time has passed, there will be no shop in this village. And now that I have come here and I am attached to an authentic Indian, why not take advantage of this North American Indian's last good time and do something that will remember him forever. Chapter 4. God opened another window. The name of the small tribe where Silly Head is located is the long-haired cow tribe, because there are many wild buffaloes with very long hair living around the tribe. This large herbivore is the main source of food for the long-haired cow tribe, so the tribe is named after the long-haired cow. Among the Indians, many tribes have some very strange but interesting names. Generally speaking, according to the name of a certain tribe, you can know how the tribe lives. In fact, in a strict sense, the long-hair cattle tribe is not a tribe. At best it can only be regarded as a small village. There are only a few hundred people in the entire village. Women and children account for more than 60 people. There are only 38 soldiers who can pick up weapons for hunting or go to the battlefield. This includes the ages like Silly Head and Kuima, only 16-year-old boy. If it were in China in the 21st century, most of the 16-year-olds would still be well-behaved babies at home. It is definitely not an exaggeration to call this age a teenager by children. But in North America more than 200 years ago, the 16-year-old Indian boy was already a true warrior in the tribe. The area where the Shaggy Cattle tribe originally lived is located in a hilly area. According to Stone Bear's analysis, this tribe should belong to the Cherokee tribe, because the Shaggy Cattle tribe just had a fight with the Chickasha 3 days ago. Tough battle. Stone Bear remembers that before the United States alone, there lived Indians of 3 different races in this area of Tennessee. When Europeans began to immigrate to the New World in North America in the 16th century, these Europeans discovered that the original inhabitants of the present Tennessee state were mainly Indians from the Chickasha, Yuchi and Eastern Cherokee tribes. The Chickashas occupy the western part of West Tennessee. They build thatched cottages along the Mississippi River to form a concentrated village. Women take care of some crops and collect wild fruits in the field. Young men go out fishing or hunting, and Indians cultivate the crops are mainly corn, beans, fruits and vegetables. The Eastern Cherokee mainly live in the valleys and foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, distributed in some places in the northeastern and central parts of Tennessee. They build houses with wood on the mountains and are good at hunting and farming. As for the Yuchis, they are part of the Creek Indians in southern North America, but these small Indian tribes were driven out by the powerful Cherokee and Chickasha Indians around 1700 to the Tennessee area, to the more south and more remote areas. The remaining Eastern Cherokee and Chickasha Indians did not live and occupy the current central part of Tennessee, but regarded this area as their own hunting ground, and they continued to fight for it for hundreds of years. Ishikama knew this history, so after the sudden battle that took place 3 days ago, he knew that his opponent was the Chickasha. Since the Chickasha raised a butcher knife against another tribe, there is no doubt that the hairy cattle tribe they are now in is an Indian belonging to the Eastern Cherokee tribe. The battle ended completely with the big defeat of the long-hair cattle tribe. In fact, if the reinforcements were not coming in time, even the remaining 20-odd people would probably not be able to survive. The Chickashas had broken up and fled under the attack of the Eastern Cherokee reinforcements, but the reinforcements did not stop to take care of this small tribe that was almost wiped out. They wanted to continue chasing the Chickashas. Chickasas fighters can break through the blockade in the central area without knowing it. This shows that there is a problem with the blockade in the central area, or that the Chickasas have found a line that can easily penetrate into Eastern Cherokee, the way of the tribe. Therefore, this road must be found. After all, there are many small villages like Shaggy Cow after the blockade. If the Chickasha were to go deep into the rear of the Eastern Cherokee again unconsciously, everyone would know how terrifying the result would be. So, those brave Cherokee warriors rode horses to chase the Chickashas, leaving behind the rest of the Shaggy Cattle tribe. But the leader of Jiaoniu did not stay where he was. He took the rest of the people and continued to the southeast direction. He wanted to find a safe enough foothold for the remaining people, and then he could lick his wounds stably. For 3 days, the team has been advancing hard in the undulating mountains. Almost everyone in the team has injuries. In addition, there is no way in this purely original mountain forest, so the team's progress is very slow. However, Shi Xiong was a little surprised. According to the memory of the silly head, this body has suffered almost irreversible damage. There was a comminuted fracture of his left forearm, a severe concussion, and perhaps a severe skull fracture. You can see the blood hole in the back from the front. It is the result of the Chikash's bone spear. The ribs on the left should have broken 4 or 5, and at least 2 broken bones have been inserted into the lungs. As for the other skin wounds, it is nothing in the face of these wounds. It's no wonder that the stupid head is so strong that it can't support it. Any of these traumas, placed among the Indians of this age and almost in the primitive social form, is an incurable fatal wound. After Shi Xiong accepted all the memories of the silly head, at first he thought it would take at least 3 months to half a year to recover from the injuries on his body. In the end, God once again gave Shi Xiong something not too big or small. Surprised. Maybe God also feels that he kicked this promising museum associate researcher to North America more than 200 years ago, and he was still possessed by a semi-fool. This thing seems to be a bit unnatural, so he is giving it to Shi Xiong. While closing a door, he quietly opened a window to him. The shaman priests in the village, including priests, doctors, wizards, etc., who had all functions in one body, had long since died under the bows and arrows of the Chikashes, so no one in the team could see how severe the trauma to the silly head was. In their eyes, the most serious injury on the silly head is the blood hole on the left forearm and lower abdomen, but the fact is that the broken ribs and severe concussion are the cause, the main reason for the complete death of silly head. After Shi Xiong's soul traveled through more than 200 years of time and space and took over this body, he originally thought he would also have to take over all the wounds on this body at the same time, but after only 3 days, Shi Xiong was surprised to find, except for the scary epidermal wounds on the surface of the body, the other wounds that can kill people have been magically healed. There is a tree branch outside of his left forearm. Others can't see it, but Shi Xiong can clearly feel that the pain in his left forearm has almost disappeared. And the broken ribs that kept me coughing and even coughing up blood from time to time in the past 2 days are all right now. The ghost knows how the broken ribs healed so quietly. The blood hole on the right side of the lower abdomen is no longer ticking yellow pus outward. Under a large pile of green medicine, the blood hole has gradually scarred. The most important thing is that the painful headache and the strong feeling of vomiting when I first received this body have gradually disappeared. His own body knows best. Although Shi Xiong has only accepted this body for 3 days, he can clearly feel that his new body is recovering quickly. Although Shi Xiong didn't know why his new body had such a miraculous performance, compared to the fact that his soul passed through, this kind of magical wound healing was nothing. I just don't know why the fatal wounds have been quietly healed, but the scars on the epidermis still have no good signs. The eyes are swollen like peaches. Even after 3 days, they can only be opened a gap. Chapter 5, Big Bend. Shi Xiong is pretty sure that the Shaggy Cattle tribe has been heading south for the past 3 days. The time that the sun hangs in the sky in winter is not very long. Even if Tennessee belongs to the middle and low latitudes, the time during the day is at most more than 10 hours. When the temperature is the highest at noon, Shi Xiong can see the half-dead sun in the sky with his barely opened eyes, and the direction of the team's advancement is toward the noon sun, which is to the south. Except for those little guys, almost none of the people in the team is uninjured. In addition, the team has been traveling through the mountains and forests with hardly any roads for the past 3 days. The brother estimated that this team can be able to get the most out of one day. Travel about 10 kilometers, even less than this number. The Appalachian Frontier Museum that I went to is located in Clinton, a small city about 30 kilometers north of Knoxville. If you calculate this distance, I was caught by that Katie. After Racket, the soul traveled through time and space for more than 250 years in place, and then took possession of the silly head who had just died. Stone Bear did not expect that the original beautiful town of Clinton, in the mid-18th century, turned out to be a small tribe of the Eastern Cherokee. The camping place tonight should be not far from a river, because the Stone Bear can clearly hear the rushing water in the distance. "Hey, my little bear cub, how are you recovering?" When this small team stopped moving forward again, the bonfire quickly burned, and all the people were sitting in front of the bonfire, but they don't have the cheerful singing and dancing of the past, and all of them are silent. They are cherishing the memory of their loved ones. Only the leader Gaoshu walked over tremblingly, sat down beside the sledge on which the Stone Bear was lying, and whispered in a hoarse voice to this stupid child who had made great contributions to the continuation of the tribe. Ishikama opened his eyes vigorously, but there was only a gap. "Uncle, I'm okay, where are we going? P.S. Let's not talk about the Indian language. There are some introductions in the dialogues in this book. Most of them are translated meanings. If Lao Muzan I've come up with a paragraph of Indian language. I guess everyone can't understand it, right?" Shi Xiong asked a little convulsively. Now he is not only having difficulty opening his eyes, but also speaking. The trauma on his face is not only on his eyes, his jaw and cheeks are still red and swollen, like bread eaten by Vasicus. Gaoshu gently stroked Shi Xiong's head a few times. "Child, we are going to the location of another of our patriarchs. It's almost here. After tonight, tomorrow will be almost there after a long walk. That's Lilei's tribe. Lilei's grandfather and my grandfather are brothers. Our tribe was separated more than 50 years ago. His tribe is at the foot of Lanwu Mountain in front." Hearing the name Lanwu, Shi Xiong's heart moved. Thanks to his knowledge of the history of the Indians in Tennessee, he knew very well what the place name Blue Mist meant. In the area at the junction of Tennessee and North Carolina, there is a very famous national forest park named Great Smoky Mountain National Forest Park. This national forest park is also one of the most visited forest parks in the United States. At least 10 million tourists come to this national forest park every year. This national forest park, covering an area of about 200,000 hectares, is a rare original ecological forest park in the world in later generations. It is also an international biosphere reserve and a World Heritage Site. International recognition shows the importance of this park to this planet. Even in later generations more than 200 years later, because of the extremely rich vegetation, the thick fog formed by the water vapor from the forest and staying near the surface, surrounded by mountains and flooded in the gorge, so the forest park was named Great Smoky Mountain. Of course, the reason for this name is also directly related to its main peak, Chimney Mountain. However, the Great Smoky Mountain is what later generations called this huge forest park, and in the name of the Indian Cherokee people more than 200 years ago, this huge alpine woodland was called Blue Mist. Therefore, as soon as Gaoshu talked about Blue Mist, Shi Xiong immediately understood that the team's destination should be in a certain valley in the later Great Smoky Mountain National Forest Park. Obviously, the Lila mentioned by Gaoshu should be the leader of a small local tribe. The status of Gaoshu in the long-haired Naiu tribe is the same as that of Gaoshu, and the two are still relatives. After the Naiu tribe was hit hard, Gaoshu led the rest of the tribe to defect to his cousin Lilei. Sure enough, early the next morning, the team had just walked not far before they came to a big river. This is the Big Bend. After the Big Bend, you can reach Lilei's tribe. After you cross the Big Bend, and you can reach Lilei's tribe. Gaoshu stood at the forefront of the team, pointing to the one in front of which was more than 200 meters wide. Said they. Big Bend? Hearing this name, Shi Xiong was also shocked. The Stone Bear, who is familiar with the history of North American Indians during this period, is very clear that Big Bend is the local Cherokee's name for the Tennessee River. In fact, the name of Tennessee also comes from Indian. In the Cherokee language, Tennessee means Big Bend, referring to the twisty Tennessee River. Later, early European explorers used Tennessee to call this winding river, which became the name of the state. If you really came to the north bank of the Tennessee River, then this should be Knoxville for later generations. It's just that, the third largest city and the second oldest city in Tennessee, Now it's still a barren wilderness. It's no wonder that even Nashville, the oldest city in Tennessee and the capital of Tennessee, just became a European white settlement in 1779. As for Knoxville, it's no surprise that it's still a wild country. Now North America. I'm reading www. In addition to the 13 colonies established by the British in the east of Gaoshu.com, the other places are his sister's wilds. After a whole night of repairing, Shi Xiong felt that his injury had healed a lot, so he said to the fast horse next to him, "Quick horse, help me up, I want to see here." Under the incomprehensible gaze of the surrounding clansmen, Kuwema used his thin body to try to support the man's tall stupid head. Sitting on the sledge, the stone bear can clearly see the wide river in front of him. The water flow of the Tennessee River in this era was much greater than that of later generations. The width of the Tennessee River in this region was only more than 150 meters wide even in the wet season. Now, even in the dry season, the water flow is more than the flood season, and later generations will be even greater. The rumbling river water formed countless vortices on the surface of the river, and rolled downstream in a whirlpool. Looking up from a distance, the Great Smoky Mountains about 50 kilometers from the south bank of the Tennessee River are clearly visible. After all, the Great Smoky Mountains with an average altitude of more than 1,500 meters are not comparable to the surrounding hills, which are only 200 or 300 meters above sea level. Looking at the winding river in front of me, looking up at the Great Smoky Mountains with an average elevation of more than 1,500 meters in front, looking back at the Cumberland Plateau when I came here, and looking down at the typical fold mountains around, Stone Bear can already be quite sure that he is now near Knoxville in later generations. The later Knoxville was located in the Tennessee Valley between the Cumberland Plateau and the Great Smoky Mountains. The terrain here was extremely special. The Stone Bear played in Knoxville for several days before crossing, so he knew very well the local terrain. Although there is a big difference between the current landform and the landform more than 250 years later, Shi Xiong can already determine where he is. Chapter 6, Messenger of Gods. Seeing Shi Xiong sitting up, Jiao Naiu walked over and asked with concern, "My child, how is your body?" "Fortunately, I think my body is recovering quickly. The Great Sun is here. I think this is the Great Sun blessing me." Shi Xiong stared hard, trying to make his squinted eyes look like normal. Jiao Naiu showed a happy smile on his face, but he didn't speak anymore. The battle that was almost annihilating 3 days ago not only brought physical trauma to the strong man, but also suffered a heavy blow to his mind. Stone Bear looked at the Tennessee River, which was not far away, and asked in a low voice, "Uncle, how do we cross the Big Bend?" Jiao Naiu shook his head. "We need to wait. The Bobcats had already crossed the Big Bend yesterday to find Lilei. We must get Lilei's help if we want to cross the Big Bend." "Do we have to cross the Big Bend?" Shi Xiong asked, but as soon as the question came out, he immediately realized that his question was stupid, so he shook his head slightly and continued, "Yes, we must go through the Big Bend, otherwise our safety will not be guaranteed." Jiao Naiu looked at the Stone Bear strangely, as if he was looking at something rare, and finally Jiao Naiu whispered, "Dragon Bear, tell me how you think we are going through the Big Bend." "It's very simple, with one mouth." Shi Xiong surprised Jiao Naiu again, but Shi Xiong ignored Jiao Naiu's surprise. He needed to find a suitable opportunity to implement his plan. Of course, to implement this plan, the first thing is to change the people's view of themselves, that is, the body that was originally a silly head. And there is a good opportunity in front of me. Therefore, Shi Xiong ignored the eyes of Jiao Naiu and Kuwema around him, but continued to whisper, "Our tribe has been attacked by the Chicashes, and the damage was severe, but I don't think this is the Chicasha. We found a secret route on our blockade that we did not discover. It is highly likely that the Chicashes bypassed the Great South Fork, and then went in a circle to the hinterland of our people. Unfortunately, we have become their target. Therefore, since the Chicashes can bypass the Great South Fork once, they will inevitably bypass the second or even the third time. The Great South Fork is too big, and our Cherokee people simply it is impossible to completely block the Great South Fork. So if we stay on the north side of the Great Bend, we are likely to be attacked by the Chickasaw. And this Great Bend in front of us is our best protection, as long as we can. After crossing the Big Bend and reaching the south bank of the Big Bend, then you can use the Big Bend to resist the Chickasaw attack. The Great South Fork mentioned by Shi Xiong is actually part of the Cumberland Plateau of later generations. But at this time, the Cumberland Plateau is just what the British call this highland. Although the Cumberland Plateau was discovered by British hunters as early as the 17th century, the Cumberland Plateau was not yet known by its name at that time. It was not until the mid-18th century that Thomas Walker, a British explorer from Virginia, led a team to inspect the Appalachian Mountains and came to the eastern end of the famous Cumberland Pass. He officially took this pass and the surrounding highlands. It is marked on the map and named after the fief of the Duke of Cumberland, son of King George II. Now, in the Indian Appalachian, the part of the Cumberland Heights between Knoxville and Nashville is called Great South Fork. Now the Cherokee tribe and the Chickasaw tribe are fighting for the center of Nashville in later generations. The Cherokee tribe is relying on the protection of the Great South Fork to allow the tribes in the hinterland to live safely. But obviously, the clever and cunning Chickasaws learned to detour, and when facing the dominant Eastern Cherokee tribe, they finally chose to detour. Moreover, this successful sneak attack will definitely give the Chickasaws a taste of the sweetness. So the Chickasaws, who have always been weak on the front battlefield, will inevitably use this tactic frequently. Therefore, even in the hinterland of the Cherokee tribe, the Shaggy Cattle tribe is also unsafe. Jalnaiu and Ko'ima saw the expression of the sun god. Ko'ima opened his mouth wide and was speechless in surprise, but after the leader Jalnaiu was shocked for a while, they asked uncertainly, "Child, how did you think of this?" And, "Your head." Even though the child is only 16 years old, his body is the most majestic in the entire tribe. Even many grown-up men can't compare to this infinitely powerful little guy. If this little guy is a little smarter, then he will definitely become a great hero for the entire Cherokee tribe. It's a pity that this child has a problem with his head. He doesn't understand anything except hunting and eating. But now, even Jalnaiu didn't think of these things. This guy said the reason why he took the remaining clansmen to join his cousin Lele was to let the remaining clansmen continue to live. Although it was not a good result to go to Lele's tribe, Jalnaiu would rather do it than extermination. After all, although the two tribes are a bit far apart, they are related by blood. But the words that Sillyhead said just now really shocked Jalnaiu. "Uncle, my head seems to be resuscitated." The Chickasaw smashed a stick. "I seemed to have seen the great sun in a coma. That told me many things, many things, and I also felt mine. My mind doesn't seem to be so chaotic anymore. I can think of many things." Shi Xiong continued to whisper. The Cherokee tribe is very large. There are hundreds of tribes living in the Appalachian Mountains. The Cherokee people here believe in many gods, from the supreme sun to the of thunder and lightning, to those flying in the sky, eagle gods, bear gods walking on the earth. Like other Indians, as long as they are creatures or natural phenomena that can make the Indians feel puzzled, they will be worshipped in the name of so-and-so god. Of course, the highest deity of the entire Cherokee tribe is the sun god. Not only the Cherokee tribe, but Indians living on the entire American continent regard the sun as the supreme god. Therefore, Shi Xiong naturally borrowed the name of the sun god, which can avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. Ko'ima asked in surprise, "Sillyhead, have you really seen the supreme sun god?" Ishikaman nodded affirmatively. Jalnaiu and Ko'ima's face changed immediately. To be honest, they are a little bit distrustful of stupid words, but the fact is right in front of him. It is absolutely unimaginable that the always stupid head can say such a clear word. And the reason that can make such a huge change in the silly head, I am afraid that other than the great sun god, others may really not be able to do this. The two people looked at each other, and they both understood what they meant in each other's eyes. Perhaps, the silly head really got the favor and guidance of the sun god. If this is true. When Jalnaiu and Ko'ima looked at the silly head again, their eyes became frenzied. Although his tribe has just suffered a severe damage that is close to annihilation, If there is a person in the tribe who can get the guidance of the sun god, then the prosperity of the tribe is just around the corner. Uncle Kuema, you don't have to look at me with this kind of eyes. I can tell you very clearly that I did get the guidance of the supreme sun god. Moreover, the sun healed my head for me personally. My injured body. I'm reading www.hukanshu.com. Shi Xiong pointed to his temple. Otherwise, how could my head heal so quickly? Also, the injury on my body is so fast, you should have seen it, but you look at my arm again, there is almost nothing wrong now. This is all cured by the Great Sun with his divine power. Because the Great Sun told me, he said, silly head, you are not dead yet at the time, your mission has not yet been completed, and you have to lead your tribe to the top. Shi Xiong shrugged his shoulders, and continued to say faintly under the dumbfounded gaze of Jiao Niu and Kuema, so, I became what I am now. Even in the modern era, after more than 200 years, religion is still an extremely powerful force, and almost all countries have included the freedom of belief in the constitution, which is enough to prove that in the process of human development, belief and the role of religion. Let's not talk about the Middle East for later generations. Those fanatical religious activists even turned the entire Middle East upside down. Even in developed countries in Europe and America, the power of religion should not be underestimated. And now, here, faith and religion are even more incredible. The North American Indians, who are still in the near-barbarian era, are almost incomprehensible with their enthusiasm for the worship of gods. And they are not inferior to those fanatical religious elements in the Middle East. Therefore, if you want to be better in this land in this era, it is undoubtedly a very good way to put on yourself a big hat of a messenger. And Shi Xiong firmly believes that he has more than 250 years of insights than anyone in this world, enough to ensure that he can make anyone who dares to doubt himself come home in this age. It was with this thought that he said the above words. Since is the messenger of the gods, let's start with the great changes now. Chapter 7, Cross the River. Uncle Kuema, this is only known to you two now. The Supreme Sun has already told me through the eagle soaring in the sky. Don't let too many people know about this, and it's limited to you two now. As Shi Xiong said, he looked up at the sky, his expression unpredictable. Jiao Niu and Kuema also raised their heads. In the blue sky, a huge bald eagle glided leisurely, making a cry that resounded throughout the world. Jiao Niu and Kuema bowed to the bald eagle soaring in the sky. In the Shaggy Cattle tribe and even the Eastern Cherokee tribe, the eagle god is the second only to the sun god. According to the Cherokee shaman, according to the high priest, the eagle is the messenger of the sun walking on earth. At this time, Jiao Niu and Kuema can no longer tolerate any doubts, and they can no longer be familiar with the things that are familiar with the silly head. In terms of blood relationship, Jiao Niu is the uncle of Stupid Head, and Kuema is the partner who grew up with Stupid Head. Because Kuema has never laughed at him because of the stupidity of Stupid Head, so he is stupid, the best friend of the head. In their eyes, if 3 days ago, the silly head would never say such a philosophical and so organized thing, the silly head would only be a little smarter than the pure fool in the tribe. So, they both nodded very simply, and said almost in unison, "We promise not to tell the third person about this." The lynx came back, with 7 Indian men in animal skins, who had crossed the big bend in a canoe hollowed out of a huge tree trunk. The bobcat's face was also full of scars. As the leader of the long-hair cattle tribe, Jiao Niu's most powerful subordinate, after the battle started 3 days ago, he lit up a wolf smoke to inform the tribe to come to rescue, and then when the battle was over, under Jiao Niu's instructions, he came to Li Lei's tribe as quickly as possible to find support. He must have suffered a lot along the way. These scars on his face are evidence. Chief, Li Lei's situation is not very good. He was slapped on the back by an adult black bear during a hunt a few days ago. The bobcat whispered in front of the tall cow, said. Jiao Niu's eyebrows frowned immediately. The stone bear half leaning on the sledge couldn't help being surprised. American black bears are not like the Asian black bears that live in the forests of northeast China. The size of the American black bears is much larger than that of the black blinds in the forests of the Northeast. An adult American black bear can grow up to 600 kilograms and stand tall when standing up. It can exceed 2 meters. Although American black bears cannot be compared with polar bears or Kodiak brown bears, for a human being, this thing is still very terrible. Leader Li Lei was slapped by an adult black bear, and the effect was almost the same as being hit by a car at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. An Indian guy who followed the lynx stood in front of Jiao Naiu, crossed his hands on his chest, bent over at Jiao Naiu slightly, and stood up straight and said, "Leader Jiao Naiu, our leader Li Lei is not doing well, so send me over to pick you up." Jiao Naiu made the same move, and then asked anxiously, "Bigfoot, how is my Lilei brother?" Obviously, Jiao Naiu knew the man in front of him, and Bigfoot is the name of the Indian man. Bigfoot shook his head slightly, and looked at the only 20-odd people left in the long-hair cattle tribe. Then he whispered, "Leader Jiao Naiu, you should cross the river with me quickly. Wait until our high tree." The tribe, you know the situation of Leader Li Lei. Jiao Naiu and Koi Ma looked at Shi Xiong at the same time. Shi Xiong shook his head slightly. Jiao Naiu waved his hand and motioned to his tribe to follow the Bigfoot along the river to the west, which is the upper reaches of the river. Go. This section of the river is restricted by the topography, so although the river surface is very wide, the current is extremely turbulent. Obviously, this is not a good place to cross the river. After walking eastward along the river for about 2 miles, the rushing Tennessee River suddenly turned a bend close to 90 degrees, and the river channel in front of it suddenly became wide. The two sides of the river in this area are not bound by mountains, so the river has become very wide, with a width of 700 or 800 meters, as if the Tennessee River formed a lake in this area. If you continue to travel a short distance upstream, you can see the two most important tributaries of the upper Tennessee River, the Hortons River to the north and the French Broad River to the south. In fact, the Tennessee River was formed after the intersection of these two rivers. After the intersection of the two rivers, the Tennessee River began to be called the Tennessee River. The real source of the Tennessee River is the Hortons River to the north. Of course, whether it is the Hortons River or the French Broad River, they are all names given by later generations of Americans. Now, these two rivers are also called Big Bend. In later generations, dams were built on the upper reaches of the two rivers, forming two large reservoirs. It is because of the regulation function of these two reservoirs that the flow of these two rivers is drastically reduced, thus restraining the manic Tennessee River. I'm reading www.whokenshu.com. Now, everything is still in a wild state. Neither the Hortons River nor the French Broad River have any artificial structures to restrain them, so these two rivers can unscrupulously send a steady stream of water downstream. Water. Stone Bear remembers clearly that when he and his partner came to the Tennessee River to play before crossing, there was no such wide river channel in front of him. It was a piece of farmland. And now, because the upper reaches of the reservoir does not have the regulating effect, the two tributaries of the upper Tennessee River converge to form a large lake-like river in this flat area. Of course, in the lower reaches of this lake, because the river is bound by the mountains on both sides, the Tennessee River will revert to a violent river. Jiao Naiu, who has been following Shi Xiong's sledge, said in a low voice, "This section of the river is the most gentle area around the Big Bend. We can only cross the Big Bend here." Two canoes made of hollowed-out tree trunks stopped quietly on the shore. This canoe, which was taken out of a tree trunk with a diameter of more than 1.5 meters, can carry 4 people at a time, and the two boats ran back and forth 4 times, and then all the people were transported to the other side. After crossing the river, Shi Xiong couldn't ride that sledge anymore. The sledge is too big to transport the canoe at all. However, it does not matter even if there is no sledge. Stone Bear, after 3 days of recuperation, plus those unexplained reasons, the almost incurable serious injury of the original silly head is almost healed by this time except for the epidermal injuries. And seeing that the silly head who was dying 3 days ago actually stood up and walked on their own, Jiao Naiu and Koi Ma once again looked at each other in surprise, and both found the incredible in each other's eyes. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Standing Man on Fist, Running Horse on Arm. Jiao Niu's cousin Li Lei's tribe's name is very simple. It's called Gaoshu. The reason why is called this name is very simple, because near this tribe, there is a large American giant sequoia known as the Master of the World. Stone Bears from later generations are also very knowledgeable, but he really did not expect that in this era, near the Great Smoky Mountain National Forest Park, which is very close to the east coast of North America, there would be so many American giant sequoias growing. If this is placed in later generations, it will definitely cause a sensation. The American giant sequoia can only be found in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California after more than 200 years. It can no longer be seen in most areas of the United States and Canada and can grow to 70 or 80 meters high, a giant tree with a diameter of 5 or 6 meters at breast height. The most important thing is that American giant sequoias are suitable for growing in cold high mountains. But this area where the Gaoshu tribe is located has an altitude of up to 300 meters. How can it be possible to grow so many giant sequoias? Ishikama is not a botanist, so he cannot explain this magical situation, but Stone Bear, who is familiar with history, knows very well that when the Americans moved westward, the Great Smoky Mountains used to be an important source of timber on the East Coast. In this era, environmental protection is a joke. So when the large-scale westward movement by the Americans began, more than 3,000 loggers in this area were cutting down here. Perhaps, these magical giant sequoias were all felled down by those loggers in that era, so that such large giant sequoias are no longer seen in the Appalachian Mountains. Seeing these giant cedars, Shi Xiong also understood how the canoe he used to cross the Tennessee River just now came from. Compared with the Long-Hair Cattle tribe, the Gaoshu tribe has a lot more people. 50 or 60 wooden houses are scattered in this valley. According to the number of wooden houses, the Gaoshu tribe has a population of at least 300 people around. Even if you look at the entire Cherokee tribe, this number can be regarded as a medium-sized tribe, far from the Long-Hair Cattle tribe. But it's no wonder that the Long-Hair Cattle tribe was actually separated from the Gaoshu tribe. And it is actually a branch of the Gaoshu tribe. In the most central position of the tribe, there is a large wooden house which is obviously much larger than other houses. Shi Xiong knew that if he had not guessed wrong, this very large wooden house should be the chamber of the Gaoshu tribe. This kind of chamber is found in almost every Indian tribe. There was also a chamber before the Long-Hair Cattle tribe, but the size is much smaller than that of the Gaoshu tribe. The meeting hall is the most important building in a tribe. As long as there is a large gathering in the tribe, a blazing flame will be burned before the meeting hall, and all the people of the tribe will gather in the meeting hall. When the Cherokee's most important festival, Green Valley Festival, arrives, the chamber will also hold the first fruit and new fire ceremonies, which can almost be regarded as the most important ceremony of the Cherokee. A large group of people walked out of the tribe's wooden hut, standing in front of their respective wooden huts, watching Jiao Niu and his group. Of course, Shi Xiong can also clearly see that many of the tribe members of the Gaoshu tribe are sneakingly pointing at him. Whenever his vision is over, these people hurriedly turned their heads, but the surprised expression on their faces was it is undoubtedly revealed. Shi Xiong smiled bitterly and shook his head. He knew this was a side effect of this body. Ever since he was able to open his eyes, Shi Xiong knew that his soul seemed to be possessed in an extraordinary body after more than 250 years have passed. Without him, this body with a silly head is really great. Even if it is in the later generations, this body can definitely be called a top-notch body. Let's put it this way, the physique of this body is definitely comparable to the enviable physique of the famous Hollywood star Dwayne Johnson. Standing on the fists and running horses on the arms describe this physique. If this body is a black or mixed black body, it is excusable, But this body is an Indian body. In this era, mixed-blood Indians are almost invisible, unlike pure-blood Indians in later generations. However, Shi Xiong really didn't understand why a pure-blooded Indian had such a physique that would make many black people in future generations envy and hate. However, even such things as soul wear happen, and even the American giant sequoia grows at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains, so it is not surprising that a pure-blood Indian has such a strong body. Ishikama cannot be said to be a titanium otaku in his previous life, but he can also be regarded as a concrete otaku. Therefore, his physique is really bad. Whenever I see those sturdy real men on the computer screen, it is a lie to say that I am not envious. Therefore, Shi Xiong has sworn and swear countless times, wanting to practice a body of tendon meat, but whether it is a runaway, riding a bicycle or going to the gym, he has never persisted for more than 3 days. The result is that the fat on his body is more and more practiced, and his belly is more and more bulging. Then, he stopped mentioning physical exercise anymore, which made him look like a 46-year-old when he was 36 years old. Once he went to school to pick up his younger sister's child, and he ended up with a group of first-grade little guys. After meeting him, there was still someone who called Grandpa ... Although this journey through the wild North American Indian tribe, I'm reading www.hukanshu.com, but God gave himself such a strong and drooling figure. This is the legendary Lost East, the mulberry and elm of the harvest. 2 meters high and a full weight of 120 kilograms. The most important thing is that the meat on the body is not that soft and fat, it is all muscle packs that have been built up. The ghost knows how the silly head, this half-idiot, can develop this tendon that is comparable to the Terminator Arnold. No wonder this guy was able to stand alone against a half-old black bear as early as 12 years old. No wonder this guy's clan is called Big Bear. This body is simply a bug-like existence in this era. If the silly head is now 26 years old, then there is a body that is strong enough to make women drool and make men take acidic water. After all, at that time, a man's body is basically a complete body. But the problem is that this body is only 16 years old this year, and it is still a few years away from the peak period of this body. Ghost knows that in a few years, the silly head will become a real devil muscle man. Such a physique is extremely rare even for the entire North American Indians. Therefore, when the stone bear came to the Gaoshu tribe with this sturdy and massive body, it was not surprising that he was treated differently by these tribesmen. It's a pity that it's winter, and I'm wearing clothes made of animal skins. If in summer, I barely exposed the bear stabbing my chest, Ishiguma estimated that he would definitely be able to stop the child from crying. Under the silent gaze of many Gaoshu tribesmen, the surviving more than 20 long-haired cattle tribes slowly walked into the Gaoshu tribe. Before the gate of the chamber, Shi Xiong also saw leader Li Lei. Chapter 9, Accept. Seeing the leader of Li Lei, Shi Xiong really understood what the adjective wax white meant. The leader of Li Lei was supposed to be a very strong Cherokee man. For the Indians, the leader of a tribe is not only the manager of the entire tribe, but also the best and most powerful warrior of the tribe. So to become the leader of an Indian tribe, a strong physique is an indispensable prerequisite. Li Lei has a very large skeleton, so if he has more flesh on his body, then he must be a very strong man. But, Li Lei, half leaning on a sliding pole, now looks like a late lion king who has been driven away from the lion group. It may be a bit inappropriate to describe Li Lei as skinny, but it is definitely not an exaggeration to describe Li Lei as a bamboo pole. There was barely much flesh on Li Lei's body and face. The loose skin made him look like an old man in his 60s or 70s. But Shi Xiong knew that Li Lei was only in his 30s this year, and he was even younger than Jiao Naiu. The most important thing is his face, waxy white and pale, which reminds Yang Jing of many zombies in Hong Kong and Taiwan zombie movies. Cough cough. Before he could speak, Li Lei made a series of coughing sounds, and his face was flushed red. My dear brother, what's wrong with you? Although Jiao Naiu learned from Bigfoot's mouth that Li Lei was injured, he really didn't expect Li Lei's injury to be so serious. Shi Xiong, who knows some medical knowledge, somewhat understands that Li Lei has hurt the root. The slap of the adult black bear should have caused incurable damage to Li Lei's internal organs. Among other things, at least Li Lei's lungs were traumatized. And looking at Li Lei's face and his weight loss, his liver and even his spleen may have suffered irreversible injuries. Li Lei, who stopped coughing, smiled bitterly and shook his head and whispered to Jiao Naiu, "My dear brother, I am really happy to see you again, but you have seen my appearance. I am afraid that my time will not do much." After a pause, Li Lei stood up with difficulty, and looked at the 20 or so people behind Jiao Naiu, especially when his eyes fell on Shi Xiong. Li Lei's eyes flashed. The look of surprise seemed to be surprised that Shi Xiong's physique was so strong. Jiao Naiu quickly supported Li Lei, with a sad look on his face and said, "My good brother, our long-hair cattle tribe is gone. There are only a few people left in the tribe of more than 100 people. Others they were all killed by the Chikashes. I want to take revenge, but we can't do it with our people, so I can only take them to run to you." Li Lei nodded slightly. "My dear brother, whether it is the Gaoshu tribe or the long-hair cattle tribe, you used to be a family. You come home when you come here. Don't have so much inferiority. We are all the son, child of God. We are bathed in the light of the sun God. We have always been a family, but we are temporarily living in different houses." As he said, Li Lei raised his volume slightly, and said to the remnant of Shi Xiong and the others, "I Li Lei, the leader of the Gaoshu tribe, on behalf of the entire Gaoshu tribe, welcome you home." All the people, including Jiao Naiu, bowed their heads slightly, crossing their hands and stroking their chests. Crossing the hands and stroking the chest is a salute gesture of the Eastern Cherokee tribe. If you add the bowing of your head, it is a sign of complete surrender. The long-hair cattle tribe itself is separated from the Gaoshu tribe. The two tribes are closely related by blood. In terms of the relative relationship of Huaxia, these two tribes are actually relatives who have no wufu. In Huaxia, this it is counted as a yard. Now, the long-hair cattle tribe has been maimed. The remaining people of the long-hair cattle tribe have come to the Gaoshu tribe. The leader of the family announced that they will accept them on behalf of the entire tribe. The stone bears, including the leader of Jiao Naiu, must say surrender and thank. Cherokees are actually North American Indians belonging to the Iroquois family at the junction of the United States and Canada. They are distant relatives with the Iroquois. The Cherokee people lived in the Great Lakes region of North America a long time ago, but later because of offending the powerful Iroquois in Delaware, the Iroquois in Delaware united and expelled from the Great Lakes. In desperation, the Cherokee had to stay away from their ancestral land, all the way south, and finally settled down in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Tennessee, South Carolina, and western North Carolina. The original Cherokee tribes were very large. The vast and abundant Great Lakes region had enough resources to support the Cherokees to build large tribes. In that era, it was very common for a tribe with a population of more than 1,000 people. But when they moved south to the Appalachian Mountains, although the products here are also very rich, it is a mountainous area after all, and the area of suitable living area is far from comparable to the flat Great Lakes region. So it cannot support a tribe's large population. Therefore, there are many Cherokee tribes, but the population of each tribe is relatively small. Except for a few major tribes whose population can reach thousands of people, most of the other tribes are small tribes with only about 100 people. Reading www.hukanshu.com. A tribe, as long as the population reaches the upper limit that the tribe can bear, then it will separate and find a new place to live and form a new tribe. That's how the long-hair cattle tribe separated from the Gaoshu tribe, but the time between the two tribes was not very long, not even 50 years, plus the distance between the two tribes is not counted. It's too far, so there is still a relatively close connection between the two tribes. However, the separated tribe is a separated tribe after all. Under the constraints of the jungle law of natural selection, if the long-hair cattle tribe is annihilated, the other tribes will rarely take care of it. Just like this time the remnants of the shaggy cattle tribe came to the Gaoshu tribe. If the Gaoshu tribe does not accept it, the shaggy cattle tribe can't say anything else. It is love to accept you, but it is duty not to accept you. After all, the resources of the Gaoshu tribe are also limited. As a leader, Li Lei must first consider the needs of his tribe. Although there are not many more than 20 people, it can be considered a big burden for the Gaoshu tribe. Li Lei was able to accept Jiao Niu and the others as the leader of the Gaoshu tribe. This sentiment was already great. Therefore, Jiao Niu must show surrender and gratitude, otherwise, let alone Li Lei, other people in the Gaoshu tribe would be unwilling. P.S. The new book is open, and Lao Mo urgently needs readers' great firepower. To be honest, the timing of Lao Mo's opening of this new book seems to be not very good, just in time for the net operation. All of Lao Mo's old books can't be found. If you want to make an advertisement, you can't hit it. Old book friends, I don't know that Lao Mo has opened a new book. Lao Mo is very depressed, but there is no way. So, please take care of Lao Mo a lot, everyone. Lao Mo is grateful. Thank you. Chapter 10, The Embryonic Form of Civilization. Among the remaining people in the Longhair Cattle tribe, except for the warriors, Jiao Niu, Koima, Lynx, Bone, Wild Fox and Stone Bear, among the remaining 16 people are 3 young women and 13 children. The number of adult warriors is not large, which is very beneficial for the remnants of the Longhair Cattle tribe to smoothly integrate into the Gaoshu tribe. If the remaining people are strong warriors, even if the relationship between the two tribes is very close, it is not conducive to the people from the Longhair Cattle tribe to integrate into the Gaoshu tribe. This is the normal state of Indians in this era. The tribes cooperate with each other and guard against each other, which is the state of North American Indians in this era. Of course, it is more about fighting each other. If it is said that the warring states period in China more than 2,000 years ago was when 7 relatively large countries were fighting each other, then the North American Indians of this era were hundreds of tribes fighting each other for a bite and a place. If the Indians had a sufficiently powerful unified government at this time, these poor Indians would not be nearly killed by the Americans. In this era, whether British colonists or French, Spanish, German, or Dutch colonists, they still respect the natives of North America, especially when the number of Indians now occupies an absolute overwhelming advantage. The vassals from Europe still dare not fight against the Indians. In fact, even after the United States alone, for a period of time, the Americans dare not act on the Indians. Until the number of white Americans is large enough, and the number of thermal weapons is also large enough, those white people who don't want to die for gold and resources dare to raise butcher knives against the Indians. And the facts have also proved that because the seemingly powerful Indians are just a pile of scattered sand, without a powerful regime and a powerful force to protect them, they will be defeated one by whites who are much smaller than them. In the end, as many as 2 million North American Indians who originally lived in North America, from the time when the United States was alone to the finalization of the United States at the end of the 19th century, the entire North American Indians were less than 200,000 people were left to slaughter. The root cause of all this can't actually be blamed on the Americans. It has a great relationship with the North American Indians themselves without a backbone. It's like now, even if there are only 22 people left in the Shaggy Cattle tribe, it will take a while to integrate into the Gaoshu tribe, not to mention the mistrust between the complete tribes. But none of this has anything to do with the silly head of Shi Xiong. The reputation of the silly head is actually relatively large in the Eastern Cherokee, mainly because this stupid man has a physique that everyone envy, but his brain is so stupid, so many Cherokee people have heard of it, but this stupid big guy who seems to be an angel and a devil together. As the Gaoshu tribe, which is relatively close to the Longhair Cattle tribe, the people in this tribe have naturally heard of this person. And when they heard again that in the battle, Silly Head faced 6 adult Chickasaw warriors alone, the people in the Gaoshu tribe were still very welcome to Silly Head. A big man who knows to protect the tribe, but his brain is not easy to use, is more welcome from every tribe. This kind of stupid guy, as long as he is fed up usually, whether it is hunting or fighting, it is an extremely sharp weapon. The most important thing is that the senior leaders in the tribe don't have to worry about such powerful fighters who can conquer the battle to seize power. Every tribe needs and likes such people. So, except for those 5 or 6-year-old children, the silly-headed stone bear is the fastest person to integrate into the Gaoshu tribe. However, even so, the residential area of the long-hair cattle tribe is still divided into the marginal area of the Gaoshu tribe, close to the tall world masters. Now Stone Bear has been able to determine that the Gaoshu tribe should actually be located near the later town of Wildwood, because at the western edge of the Gaoshu tribe, there is a river that is not wide but has a lot of water flow. Stone Bear knows that this river will be the river called Little River in later generations, because Stone Bear knew that there were only 2 large-scale tributaries on the south bank of the upper reaches of the Tennessee River in later generations, one island the Little Tennessee River, and the other is the Little River. It's just that the width of the Little Tennessee River is wider and the water flow is greater, so this river can only be the Little River. The flat valley where the Gaoshu tribe lives is located at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains. About 10 kilometers from the Tennessee River to the north, the tall world gods are on the south of the Gaoshu tribe, and the west of the tribe is Little Lane, the river. The area inhabited by the long-hair tribe lies between the giant sequoias and the Little River. Although Jao-Niu was injured in that battle, since he came to Gaoshu tribe, he still often didn't see anyone. After all, he is the leader of the Shaggy Cattle tribe and a very brave and eloquent warrior. So when the remnants of the Shaggy Cattle tribe came to the Gaoshu tribe, he was recruited by the Gaoshu tribe. Wild foxes have also been recruited. They need to hunt for the tribe and collect as many prey as possible for the people of the tribe. As for the silly-head Stone Bear, no one in the tribe cares about him now. One is that the injuries on his body look terrible, even if the injuries in his body have healed long ago, but he still looks like a severely wounded person. I'm reading www.hukanshu.com. Especially the people of the Gaoshu tribe knew that his injury was caused by one enemy. 6. Many high-level officials of the Gaoshu tribe couldn't bear to recruit the stupid head of the Stone Bear. After all, a warrior who was seriously injured to protect his tribe is considered a hero in the entire Cherokee tribe. Therefore, the Stone Bear, who has been idle these days, except for dangling at the feet of those world masters, is sitting on the bank of the Little River in a daze watching the roaring river water. To be honest, the situation of the Gaoshu tribe is much better than that of the Shaggy Cattle tribe. At least the flatland area here far exceeds that of the Shaggy Cattle tribe. Unlike the Sioux, who almost lived a safer life, the Cherokee were forced to move south and came to the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains. They started the first level of farming, and later came into contact with the Wasik from Europe. Cherokee's life stabilized. The Cherokees nowadays don't live like they used to live in the Great Lakes. If the Sioux is still a hunting nation, then the Eastern Cherokees are a farming nation. Yes, even if the entire North American Indians are still in a wild state in this era, the Cherokee can be regarded as the most advanced race among the North American Indians. Many civilizations in the world have developed on the basis of farming. The way of life of nomads or hunting peoples determines that they can hardly develop any splendid civilization. The current Cherokee people actually have the foundation to develop a civilization. However, as far as the current situation of the Gaoshu tribe is concerned, it is only a prototype of a civilized foundation. To truly develop, Gaoshu tribe still has many things to do. Chapter 11, Friends of Women. There is a famous saying in later generations that spreads widely: if you want to get rich, build roads first, have fewer children and more trees. Well, this sentence was once used by Shi Xiong as the upper couplet of a couplet. Therefore, the Stone Bear, who had nothing to do with nothing else, made a pair of lower couplets eating pork chops and mutton soup, boasting that the cow was better off than running. Uplink is very reasonable. As for downlink, for the Gaoshu tribe, trees are absolutely not needed to be planted. In fact, they can't even cut down trees properly, let alone this era. Even after 250 years later, the forests near the Great Smoky Mountain are covered. The rate is also extremely alarming. As for this age, Within a few hundred miles of the Gaoshu tribe, there are almost all lush, towering trees, except that there are no big trees in the river. The existence of these big trees even affected the tribe's cultivation of food. So, for the current North American Indians, especially the Cherokee Indians located near the Great Smoky Mountains, planting trees is definitely a painful thing. As for fewer children, that's even more nonsense. In this era, the entire Cherokee tribe is only about 50,000 to 60,000 people, but the Cherokee tribe occupies territory of about 100,000 square kilometers. Applying a statistical unit of later generations, at this time, the Cherokee Indians, the population density is only at the level of 1.5 individuals per square kilometer. The population is far from enough for the Cherokee and even the entire North American Indians. Therefore, anyone who dares to propose fewer children at this time will probably have to be torn to pieces by the North American Indians. As for road construction, this is still very necessary in Shi Xiong's eyes, but road construction is a project that requires a lot of labor, that is, the so-called labor-intensive work, let alone the Gaoshu tribe, even if the Cherokee tribe are all assembled, and if you want to build a few main roads in this 100,000 square kilometer mountainous area, it would be nothing short of a fantasy. Road, for the current Indians, is still a relatively remote thing. In the words of the Indians, there is no road in this world, but where the soles of our feet step on, that's the road. Obviously, that very widely circulated saying is not suitable for this era. In this era, the most important thing is food. Whether it is the Safari Indians in the north and the west or the Cherokee near the Great Smoky Mountains, the things that can make a living are the most precious. The climatic conditions in the Great Smoky Mountains are good, and there is a lot of precipitation, which is more suitable for farming, so the Cherokee people started farming only after they came here. It's just that the cultivation level of the Cherokees is too low, even more low than the Dead Sea in the Middle East. In this era, in terms of the level of cultivation, it is estimated that the black brothers and sisters in Africa are worse than the Cherokee. The Eastern Cherokee, who have just entered the semi-safari and semi-farming period, have not even concluded an effective method for farming this kind of work. They just sow the seeds after the weather gets warmer, and then basically don't wait until autumn comes to harvest in the farmland. It may be inappropriate to use farmland to describe the Cherokee's cultivation land, because even the Cherokee did not know how to weed or water the crops. As for fertilization, it is more like alien knowledge to the Cherokee. The Cherokee people nowadays, for farming, they just level out a piece of land somehow, then sow grain seeds into the ground, and then let the grain grow naturally. This method of sowing is inferior to even the roughest sowing. That's right. The women of the Gaoshu tribe that Shi Xiong sees now are busy in the farmland. That's what they do. They just threw corn seeds into the ground like this, just like throwing seedlings in China Southern. There is no plowing, no digging for planting, and no follow-up. Some are just letting these grains grow freely. No wonder that in the memory of the silly head, this food is always not enough to eat. With this method of growing crops, let alone corn as a high-yield crop, even if these Cherokee people grow potatoes, it is estimated that the harvest per acre will not reach 1,000 caddies. Whereas the land here, this is simply the party, the guards fooling the Jeshi, to bow. It's purely for fun. Seeing the silly head, a strong man squatting on a big rock on the ground. Look here, several women who are busy in the farmland are sowing seeds while pointing here, bursting into cheerful laughter from time to time. Sound. Men like beautiful women, and women like strong men. This is an instinct deeply embedded in human DNA and cannot be transferred by human will. Although his silly head is a bit silly, this physique is really amazing. There is no man like this that a woman can refuse, and no normal woman doesn't like this physique. Especially the stupid head squatting on the rock does not seem so stupid, but because he has been concentrating on crops, it seems a little more attractive. There is always one person who focuses on work or thinking, kind of inexplicable attraction. The sun is rising higher and higher, even if it is late autumn. The latitude of the Great Smoky Mountain is about 35 degrees north, so the temperature at this time is still okay. Maybe it's because of the heat, or maybe it's because I'm tired from work. I'm reading www.youcanchew.com of course. It may also be because the stupid head of Shi Xiong has been squatting on the rock beside the ground, like a big fat meat placed next to a group of hungry wolves. Therefore, these women discussed each other for a while. Just one walked towards the rock where the stone bear was. "Are you the silly head of the shaggy cattle tribe? Why do you grow so tall? Can you really fight a black bear? What are you doing squatting here?" 5 or 6 women just got close, and a series of problems came like hail overwhelming the earth, and the stone bear was a bit embarrassed. Past life Shi Xiong is not only an otaku, but also a virgin man. As a 36-year-old otaku, the cocoon on his hands is the best proof that he is still a man. So, even if these Indian women look similar to Zhongf, Shi Xiong is still a bit dazed. Regardless of whether it's in the past or in this life, buddies have never come into contact with this kind of battle. What should I do? How do you face 5 or 6 Indian women with big waists at the same time, waiting online, very anxious? Looking at the black and red face of the silly head, a few bold Indian women laughed again. The Cherokee originally belonged to the Northern Iroquois Alliance, but the Iroquois is a typical matrilineal tribe. Even if the Cherokees were forced to move south to the vicinity of the Great Smoky Mountains hundreds of years ago, especially when I started to come into contact with white Europeans more than 100 years ago, and matrilineal tribes gradually began to transition to patrilineal tribes, but the status of women in the tribes is still quite high. A drooling young man with a strong physique, like a silly head, is simply the best friend of women in the Gaoshu tribe. Chapter 12. Future Kabul Sacrifice. Seeing Shi Xiong was a little shy, the tallest of the women said, "Don't make fun of your stupid heads. His injury is not clear yet." This woman Shi Xiong knew him, and he saw this woman the day after he came to the Gaoshu tribe. It is a bit inappropriate to describe this woman as a woman, because she is only 20 years old this year. If it were placed in the modern age more than 200 years later, she had just grown up. But here, she is already the mother of 2 children. No way. In this era, North American Indians did not live long, so North American Indians married relatively early. Generally speaking, it is normal for boys to get married at the age of 14 or 5 and girls at the age of 13 or 14. This is similar to the situation in the Qin dynasty and the early Western Han dynasty in China more than 2,000 years ago. The natural selection of things is inevitable. In order to maintain the continuity of the clan, marriage and childbirth are inevitable in advance. I don't know the name of this woman, Shi Xiong, but he knows that this woman is the daughter of Kabru, the only shaman in the Gaoshu tribe, and her status in the whole tribe is very high. You must know that in North American Indian tribes, the status of shaman is no less than that of the leader of a tribe, and the status of those high priests can even be equal to that of chiefs. Of course, priests in North American Indian tribes usually have several responsibilities, one of which is a witch doctor. The brave performance of Silly Head in the last battle was recognized by the Kabul priest, so the stone bear was led to the wooden house where the Kabul priest lived on the second day. In that wooden house, the stone bear met for the first time to the legendary Indian sacrifice. To be honest, Yang Jing couldn't tell whether the Kabul sacrifice was a male or a female. The most appropriate word to describe this sacrifice is intersex person. The Kabru priest wore white linen clothes, which is also an important way to distinguish Cherokee priests from ordinary people. The Kabul ritual is very dry and thin, and the secondary sexual characteristics are very inconspicuous. What's more, there was a ravine on this guy's face, and the folds on his face made it difficult for Shi Xiong to distinguish his true age and gender. In fact, the gender concept of North American Indians only came into being after Europeans conquered North America. Before that, Indian tribes did not stipulate what male and female must be normal. In the original Indian tribe, people with both masculine and femininity would be considered a gift from the gods. They have both a man's soul and a woman's soul, and they are double blessed. Indians believe that such people are more spiritual than typical men or women, so they are often chosen as religious leaders, shamans or teachers. Indians believe that people with intersex temperament can see things from different angles at the same time, so it is a gift from God. For example, in Navajo culture, there are 4 gender divisions for Indians. First, feminine women, who play female roles in society. Second, masculine men, who play male roles in society. Third, they are feminine men who play the role of women in society. Fourth are masculine women who play the role of men. The most famous hermaphrodite is a Lakota warrior. His name is Find and Kill Them, and he is a Crow. His original name was Oshish. He was a leader, but he played a female role in the tribe. He even wore female clothes and married a woman. In the famous Battle of Rosebud River, he rescued a tribe member and showed amazing courage in the battle, so he got the nickname of Find and Kill Them. The Find and Kill Them story shows that North American Indians value the tribe's contribution to the tribe, but not their gender. The costumes of Indian children are very neutral, and there is no rule in the tribe which gender they should like or how to love them. The Indians feel that their senses are very special. They can see what others can't see, taste special tastes, smell what others can't smell, hear what others can't hear, and they have 2 souls at the same time. No wonder they will be regarded as leaders. Find and Kill Them is more than 100 years later than this time, but after more than 100 years, the status of the indistinguishable Indians in the tribe is so high, let alone now. Originally, Shi Xiong thought that the Kabul sacrifice was a man, but when he came out of the illness, Jiao Niu told him that Kabul sacrifice was actually a great woman. Moreover, the line of Kabul sacrificial offerings has lasted for hundreds of years, and every sacrificial priest of the Gaoshu tribe is called Kabul. And this woman in front of her, if nothing else, when her mother, the Kabru priest, died, she would take over the post of the High Tree tribe shaman and become a new generation of Kabru priest. Shi Xiong picked it down from the rock and bowed to this woman with obvious masculinity. Although the woman in front of him is a woman, her masculinity is very heavy. In terms of later generations, this is a heroic female man. But as the next successor to Kabulu's sacrifice, Shi Xiong must maintain sufficient respect for her. Seeing the stone bear not speaking, the woman smiled and said, "You don't need to be cautious. You and your tribe have been accepted by the tribe. You are now members of the Gaoshu tribe. Well, you can call me Little Kabru. In the future, I'm very likely to take over my mother's position and become the new Kabul sacrifice of the High Tree tribe. At that time, you will call me Kabul sacrifice." Little Kabru said, sat down on a small rock opposite the stone bear, pointed to the women around and introduced, "This is a goat's tail flower, this is called a green stone, this is a mangrove vine, and this is Momacao, all my good friends." Shi Xiong nodded slightly to the other 4 women, smiled and said, "It's nice to meet you." Shi Xiong's salute and these words surprised several women. The woman named Momacao whispered, "Doesn't the silly head seem to be stupid?" His attitude and tone of voice exchanged with those who came to the tribe. The Vasikas of animal skins look alike. Several women nodded one after another, and the look in Shi Xiong's eyes became even more curious. Little Kabru glanced at Shi Xiong, pointed to his head and asked, "Silly head, is your brain okay?" "Blessed by the Supreme Sun God, my brain seems to have changed for the better after being hit hard last time." Shi Xiong turned to face the high-hanging sun, raised his hands up and worshipped, then turning around and asking, "Are you growing corn? Why do you plant it like this? Don't you know that planting corn like this will reduce the amount of corn harvested?" When these words were spoken, several women were stunned. Chapter 13, Please call me a big bear from now on. Gekyu recommended tickets and collections. Although the little Kabru is a female man, she is still a woman after all, so she still has the instincts that a woman should have. She asked Shi Xiong, "Is there any problem with how we grow corn?" To be honest, this question is very mentally handicapped, but Kabru asks it with confidence. Agriculture is the basis for human beings to enter the era of civilization. Whether in the Eastern or Western Hemisphere, all ancient civilizations have developed agricultural production as a prerequisite. And this crop of corn is a treasure that the Indians dedicated to the world. Among the food crops of later generations, wheat, rice and corn are the three pillars, but 500 years ago, corn did not exist in the Eastern Hemisphere. This high-yield crop was cultivated by Indians and then spread all over the world. And the reason why the population of the Earth can reach 7 billion in later generations, of which corn has great credit. When corn first appeared around 5000 BC, Indians along the coast of Peru had successfully tamed the corn crop and spread it to the entire American continent. However, because of the restrictions of weather and natural conditions, the level of farming of the Indians in North America is far from that of the Indians in South America and Central America. In fact, throughout North America, which is the area occupied by the United States and Canada in later generations, most Indians still live in gathering, fishing, hunting, and safaris. Only a few North American Indian tribes live a farming life, but even if they are farming, they are not as intensive farming as their compatriots in Central and South America. Only in the later Texas and New Mexico, the Pueblo talents who live are truly intensively cultivated Indians throughout North America. The Cherokees used to live far near the Great Lakes, separated from the Pueblos by tens of thousands of miles, and the Iroquois at that time were a standard safari people. So long ago, the Cherokee, the base people, are also a standard safari nation. But later, the Cherokees were driven to the Great Smoky Mountains by the Iroquois and Delawares. The warm climate and good soil conditions made the Cherokees begin to transform from a nomadic nation to a farming nation. In this era, although the Cherokee people learned farming from their fellow Indians in the South, their farming skills were still at a very primitive level. Just like what Shi Xiong saw just now, even if they were planting corn, they didn't know the basic farming knowledge of plowing the land. Where can the yield of corn grown like this be high? Without abundant food as a foundation, it is difficult for a nation to develop a high degree of civilization. In the past, Shi Xiong only learned about the living conditions of Indians in this era from historical data, but he did not see it with his own eyes, and as a Chinese at that time, he was not interested in worrying about the Indians 200 or 300 years ago. But it doesn't work anymore. He has come to this era. He is already an Indian of this era. If he does not change the current situation at this time, sooner or later he and the Cherokee will be swept into the dustbin of history by colonists from Europe. So, if you want to change, if you want to make a difference, then from now on, let's start with the corn planting here. Ishigumi smiled slightly when he heard Little Cabron's unconvinced question, but because the skin wounds on his face were still not clean, the smile seemed a bit horrible in the eyes of the Indian women. Dear Cabro, do you want to hear the truth or lies? With a body from the soul more than 250 years later, it is natural to use the speaking habits of later generations. These words made several women stunned again. Little Cabro seemed to find it interesting to say that, so he smiled and asked, then what if I want to hear it? This is simple, and the lie is very beautiful. That is, your farming method is simply amazing. It is precisely because of your hard work that the tribal talents in the tribe can eat delicious corn, pumpkins and potatoes. The talents of the Chinese ethnic group are able to smoke pipes, and your contribution is very great. These words made several women laugh happily. Everyone likes to listen to words of praise, and the Indians have always been straightforward. These women simply can't hear that they are against their will. However, they are straightforward, but they are still very clever. Just kidding. The Huaxia people are recognized by the world as the smartest race on the planet, and the Indians come from the same origin as the Huaxia people. How could the Indians not be smart? So, after smiling, Little Cabro asked directly, what's the truth? The truth? Are you sure you want to listen to the truth? Little Cabro nodded seriously. All right. Shi Xiong sighed slightly. The truth is, if your current farming method is the farming method of our tribe, then this farming method is a very, very backward farming method. The method is far, far away from the cultivation method directed by the Supreme Sun God. As soon as this word came out, it really stabbed the hornet's nest, and several women immediately started chattering at the stone bear. It seems that the truth of loyalty and adversity is really universal. However, Little Cabro did not follow the women to accuse Shi Xiong. She thought for a while, and then stopped the accusations of several companions, and asked Shi Xiong, You just said that our current farming methods are supreme. The farming methods pointed by the sun gods are very different. Do you mean that you have seen the farming methods pointed by the sun gods? Or, little Kabru hesitated slightly, you accept the guidance of the supreme sun god? Ishikama smiled slightly again. Then do you want to hear the truth, or do you want to hear the truth? These women are so interesting. Shi Xiong likes to tease them. I'm reading www.whocanshu.com. Little Kabru rolled his eyes, and said impatiently, then talk about it now. Well, the truth is, we are all bathed in the light of the supreme sun god, so each of us is receiving the guidance of the sun every moment of every day. Shi Xiong looked at little Kabru with a smile, and little Kabru nodded slightly. The words were so high-sounding that they couldn't find anything wrong. As for the more truth, yes, I did receive personal guidance from the supreme sun god, including my injuries. They were all cured by the supreme sun god. Really? All women have incredible expressions. For them, this is no more than a mushroom bomb. Shi Xiong shrugged. How can this be false? If you ask Jiao Naiu or Kuima, then they will definitely tell you how serious my injury was at that time. It's like here. Shi Xiong pointed to his ribs. At least 3 ribs were broken here, and here. He raised his left arm again. At that scene after the battle, the bone in my left arm was completely broken, but now you look again. Is there anything wrong with my arm? 3 days. Shi Xiong stretched out 3 fingers. In only 3 days, all the serious injuries on my body were healed, and when I was in a coma, I was sure that I saw the supreme sun god, which is great. The sun healed my wounds and healed my brain at the same time. Don't forget, my name is Silly Head. There is no other reason, because I was really stupid before. But since I met the supreme sun god, my brain is not stupid, so please call me in the future. Strong Bear. Chapter 14, Strange Kabul Sacrifice. Ishikama's words completely suppressed several women, especially the little Kabru. Several other women may not be aware of the injuries of Silly Head, but Kabru had just seen Silly Head 2 days ago. The most important thing is that she personally listened to the Jiao Naiu who escorted Silly Head, and the other young man Kuima talked about how severe the trauma that Silly Head suffered in that battle. Little Kabru knew that as a tall cow, it was impossible to fool his mother in this kind of thing. Therefore, the Silly Head was indeed severely injured in that battle that could cause death. Even my mother was surprised afterwards. Mother told herself that as a priest and witch doctor in the Gaoshu tribe, she could clearly judge how serious the inner injury of this strong young man was based on the surface injuries of the stupid head. The leader of the tribe, Lile, it was just that he was slapped by an adult black bear and almost died. Judging from the physical injury of the young man, if someone were to suffer such an injury, he would have already died. Unfortunately, the big man was completely stunned. Little Kabru would not doubt his mother's words, so in the face of the incomprehensible situation of Silly Head, the only explanation is that the Supreme Sun really paid attention to this lucky young man. Seeing a slightly panicked look on the faces of his surrounding companions, little Kabru gritted his teeth and immediately made a decision. Silly brain ... Oh, sorry, Dalijon, can you come with me? It is absolutely not allowed to have a high priest in the tribe, otherwise the whole tribe will be chaotic. However, if the Silly Head really got the guidance and rescue of the Supreme Sun God, then his status would immediately surpass any person in the tribe or even the entire ethnic group, including the chief of the Cherokee tribe. Such a person is definitely not something that he can offend. Because the people who are favored by the Supreme Sun are the messengers of the Supreme Sun walking on the earth, and they are veritable divine envoys. So the words that the Silly Head said just now cannot be spread out until they are finally confirmed, otherwise the whole tribe will really be messed up. The Indians have a limited degree of civilization, poor living conditions, and a low level of intellectual development, but this does not mean that the Indians are stupid idiots. On the contrary, the vast majority of Indians are still very smart. Isn't there often experts in later generations saying that if the Indians had the education of Europeans, then it would not be the turn of European whites to occupy the entire Americas? The Indians in North America will not be nearly exterminated by the Yankees. That's just because the Indians don't have heat weapons. This kind of performance by Little Cabru is a proof. Ishikama, of course, understands what Little Cabru means. In fact, Stone Bear also needs to find a backer to rely on in this new tribe. With the current leader of the Gaoshu tribe, Lile, who is not sure whether he can survive, the High Priest Cabru is obviously one very good backer. Even if she is a woman. So Shi Xiong nodded very happily, turned and walked to the side. Little Cabru turned his head and said to several of his companions, "Stupid. Oh no, it's Great Bear, what he said just now, you only need to know it yourself, absolutely not right. Others mention it, even your husband and children are the same." Before confirming the authenticity of the words that the Great Bear just said, the Supreme Sun will never allow these words to be revealed. You must keep this secret. So I will take Dolly Bear to my mother to verify. Seeing the seriousness that Little Cabru said, several women nodded and said that they would never tell the matter. Involves the Supreme Sun God, give them some courage and they dare not talk nonsense. The will of the gods cannot be violated, and in the same way, as the future high priest of the tribe, the Little Cabru's words are best not to violate. When I saw the High Priest Cabru again, Stone Bear was also a little shocked. Is this still the sloppy, old face that I saw 2 days ago, and the bark of those world masters outside the tribe? The dressed-up woman in front of her, except for the faintly visible folds on her face, could not be seen at all. This was the high priest that Shi Xiong thought was almost 100 years old. Kabulu's sacrifice wears clothes and jewelry that are only worn when the tribe holds large-scale ritual activities, and the top of the head is covered with feathers of various colors. The most important thing is that face. Although the thick foundation still doesn't cover the folds of the face, and it looks a bit frightening, at least the high priest looks much younger. If you just look at the appearance of the high priest you saw 2 days ago, and you say that she is probably 100 years old, some people believe it, then the age of the Cabru high priest today seems to be at most 50 years old. I'm reading www.youcanchew.com. You were here? Child of God, as soon as we met, the costumed high priest said in a cordial tone, "Come here and sit here. The seat over there is not where you sit. In this room, only that seat is worthy of you," High Priest Cabru said, pointing to a stone bench next to the north wall. Beside the stone bench, right in the middle of the north wall of the house, there is a very abstract painting hanging. The painting is painted on a piece of cloth similar to linen. The golden and shining circle painted on the top of the center of the painting should be the sun, and the silver-white bird flying in the sky below the sun should be it is a giant eagle, and below it are mountains, trees, bears, wolves, leopards, pythons and many other animals. Of course, at the bottom is a group of people who are kneeling. The content described in this painting is obviously a scene where a group of primitive Indians are worshipping various gods. The silly head of the past didn't know what this painting was used for, and later generations of stone bears had no knowledge of this aspect, but judging from the position of the painting, it is obviously a very important painting. And the stone bench is on the left side of the painting. Obviously, the position of this stone bench should also be very important. The stone bear hesitated a little, and the Cabru sacrifice said with a smile, "Sit down, child of God, only you in the entire tribe are qualified to sit in that seat." Words made the little Cabru on the side widened in surprise, and Shi Xiong hesitated for a while and walked over. As a result, when he got closer, he realized that the painting was not painted. The sun on the top was made of gold wire, and the big eagles, bears, leopards, wolves, pythons and other beasts below were all made of silver, silk or gold wire. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15. My time is running out. As we all know, the American Indians have left countless valuable cultural relics for later generations. Unfortunately, most of them are left by the Indians of Central and South America. The precious cultural relics left by the North American Indians are not too much. Many This is also directly related to the Americans marching westward a few decades later, and then the large-scale massacre of North American Indians. Everyone is killed, can things stay? As a staff member of the museum before the Civil War, Shi Xiong knows very well about that terrible history. During the Second World War, the cruel German genocide once massacred nearly one-third of the Jews. Just like that, the Jews have been saying that the German genocide had destroyed the Jews. The number of North American Indians before the United States alone was conservatively estimated to exceed 2 million. From the beginning of the 19th century, the Americans began to move westward, and until the end of the 19th century, the number of North American Indians exceeded 2 million. Less than 200,000 people were left to slaughter, so what is it called? Therefore, even in the museums of later generations, it is rare to see the precious cultural relics left by the North American Indians. But here, Shi Xiong accidentally found a hanging painting. It seems a bit inaccurate to define this painting with a hanging painting, but the partial stone bear can't remember what to define this painting. Although this painting is hung on the wall, it is full of antique charm. That's right, Shi Xiong dared to swear by the soul of a later associate researcher-level cultural preservation expert that although this painting looks inconspicuous, it really has an indescribable primitive charm. Especially the various portraits woven with gold and silver threads above. Although a bit abstract, they are very charming and vividly depict the scenes of North American Indians worshipping gods a long time ago. Even at that moment, Shi Xiong forgot what the purpose of coming to this big wooden house was. This painting attracted his mind almost in an instant. Seeing this tall and strong young man who was a little outrageous, he was immediately attracted by the painting. An astonishing light burst into the eyes of the Cabru priest, but it disappeared in an instant. However, I have been paying close attention to the mother's kinship. Note, Indians call mothers, grandmothers, and female ancestors. Male kinship refers to fathers and male ancestors. To reiterate, Lamo will use modern names in the future. It's not so complicated. The little Cabro was taken aback. To be honest, she has seen her mother wear this costume many times since she was a child, but it was almost all things that happened in large-scale tribal activities. When wearing this kind of costume for the sake of being alone, even the little Cabru has only seen his mother do it twice since he can remember, including this time. Little Cabru knew that the reason why her mother dressed up like this was definitely her reason, but little Cabru didn't want to see her mother dressed like this for being alone, because the result was not good, very bad. Little Cabru wants to open her mouth and ask her mother why she is doing this, but she is stopped by her mother's eyes. Although Shi Xiong's mind was attracted by the painting in that moment, he was used to seeing many precious cultural relics in his previous life, so in just a short time, his mind jumped from this painting. Come out. Compared with the precious cultural relics displayed in the China National Palace Museum, the National Museum, and the South China Museum with thousands of years of history, although this painting is very beautiful and precious, it is not a big deal for the well-informed stone bear. Turning around, Shi Xiong sat on the stone bench generously. For a moment, even the little Cabru felt like an illusion. She only felt that it seemed to be caused by the epidermal injury. The young man who was a little scary but was actually a little immature, the moment she sat down, it seemed as if she saw a great chief who ruled the world. Especially the expression that this young man showed inadvertently after sitting down. Ying Shi Lang Gu and Yuzi Yuan Ming. If the little Cabru knew this Chinese idiom, she would definitely describe the young man in this way, the kind of expression that inadvertently showed after sitting down. Cabulu's eyes flashed again, and then she slowly walked up, bent down slightly, and then nodded at the stone bear. Child of God, don't ask for now. I know you have a lot of doubts in your heart, but please listen to me first. I have run out of time. Cabru's words made Shi Xiong's heart tense. The little Cabru behind her anxiously wanted to say something. Cabru Sacrifice immediately waved his hand. Don't talk, listen to me. Cabru, this is a legendary name. My ancestors had this name hundreds of years ago. At that time, our people still lived carefree by the big lake in the north. At that time, Ka the name Balu is the highest high priest of all the people living near the Great Lake. The stone bear understands the words of the Kabru sacrifice. The Cherokee themselves are Indians living near the Great Lakes. Read www.ukonshu.com. And the big lake mentioned by the Kabru sacrifice is Lake Michigan, Michigan. Like the Tennessee River, the lake is of Indian origin. In Indian language, Michigan means Great Lake. Because of the blessing of the Supreme Sun God, our Kabru line has a magical ability, that is, to be able to sense some fuzzy future. For this, our Kabru line has also paid a huge price. More than 300 years ago, my ancestors perceived a very bad future, and for this he paid the price of reducing his lifespan by 20 years. Unfortunately, the ancestors' warning to the chief did not get the chief's attention, and then we the Cherokees were driven out of the Great Lakes by the Iroquois and Delawares, and my ancestors died on the way to the south. Later, another of my ancestors also became the high priest of Kabru. She instructed our people to settle down in Appalachia. Our people lived in peace for a while, but then there was another one. After an ancestor became the high priest of Kabru, she foresaw the coming of the Vasichis. My ancestor asked the chief not to treat those Vasichis, because that ancestor had foreseen that the Vasichis were better than the most ferocious hungry wolf is also a ferocious person. As a result, the chief was obsessed with the ironware and exquisite food brought by the Vasichis. He was unwilling to believe the prophecy of the high priest Kabru, and even contradicted my ancestor. In the end, my ancestor leaving Monongahela in the north with his own tribesmen, along the Big Bend came to the vicinity of the Blue Mist, and lived with other tribesmen. But the end result is that those Vasichis are finding out about us. After the situation, we slaughtered many clansmen there with guns, and finally seized that area, and our clansmen were also forced to leave there. Chapter 16, Sacrifice. The priest Kabulu said very plainly, and it is definitely not an exaggeration to describe it with eloquence. But the content she said really made Shi Xiong a little creepy. Being able to perceive the future vaguely, this is simply a bug-level skill. Can such a legendary skill really exist in reality? At first, Stone Bear really didn't believe it, but with the words of Kabul sacrifice, Stone Bear discovered that this Kabul sacrifice line might really possess such a heaven-defying skill. Otherwise, why can the Kabru line be passed down for so long? According to the Kabru sacrifice, Kabru was a noble priest hundreds of years ago, and he was also the high priest of the entire Cherokee tribe. This kind of high priest is not like the sacrifice in the Gaoshu tribe. It is the top priest in the entire ethnic group, that is, the tribal high priest, and the status is extremely high. Just like the leader of the Shaggy Bull and the High Tree tribe can only be called the leader, the highest leader of the entire Cherokee tribe can be called the chief. Small and medium-sized tribes such as the Longhair Cattle and the Gaoshu tribe can only be regarded as patriarchs at best, and even the smaller Longhair Cattle tribes are not even patriarchs. Strictly speaking, the Longhair Cattle tribes can only be regarded as tribes. Clan. The formation of North American Indian tribes is based on clans. Several clans form a sib, and then several sibs together form an ethnic tribe. Therefore, whether it is a long-haired cow or a tall tree, it is actually not qualified to be called a tribe. Yes, the village is the most appropriate name. Therefore, whether it is Jaunaiu or Lile, he can only be called a leader, but cannot be called a chief. According to the Kabru sacrifice, her ancestors had been the Cherokee high priest for hundreds of years. If what she said was true, then the Kabru line was really brilliant. Of course, the ancestors of the Kabru sacrifice had foreseen the Cherokee being driven out of the Great Lakes by the Iroquois and Delawares, and had also foreseen the massacre of European white colonists. If all this was true, this kind of talent skills possessed by Kabru's line is really terrifying. This is a proper big prophecy. Even if it takes 20 years of life to activate this kind of magical big prophecy once, it is quite impressive. To be honest, at first Shi Xiong really didn't believe what the Kabru sacrifice said. Anyway, the things that her ancestors did have been in the past hundreds of years, and Shi Xiong has not seen it personally. However, even the soul-wearing thing happened in his own body, so it seems that it is not unacceptable that the Kabul sacrificial line possesses this kind of magical skill. As if not seeing the change in the look on Shi Xiong's face, Kabru Sacrifice continued to talk. About 6 days ago, my mind was suddenly shaken, and I realized that something seemed to be happening, but that moment of throbbing made it hard for me to grasp. Afterwards, I struggled for several days, but still no results were obtained. After a pause, Kabru Sacrifice looked at the stone bear with a bitter smile, as if to explain, the skill that we have in Kabru's vein can only be triggered passively, as long as major events related to the fate of our race are about to appear. Our generation of Kabru sacrifices will immediately sense it. If we want to fully understand what is about to happen in the future, as long as we are willing to sacrifice our lifespan, then we can vaguely sense the future. 20 years of lifespan is too costly, and it is really too big for us personally. The wry smile on the face of the Kabru priest grew stronger. Do you know how old I am this year? Shi Xiong shook his head slightly. It is really hard for him to guess how old the Kabul sacrifice is now, and the little Kabul behind Kabul sacrifice is already in tears. I am only 35 years old this year. Shi Xiong was shocked by this. He was able to guess that the age of the Kabru sacrifice should be in his 40s based on the age of the little Kabru, but he really did not expect the age of the Kabru sacrifice to be more than 40 years old. My guess is still younger. This is because I have used this skill twice since I became the Kabru sacrifice of this generation from the age of 25. Shi Xiong was silent. Little Kabru was already crying. Shut up. Kabru sacrificed his head and yelled at his daughter, and the little Kabru didn't dare to speak again. Kabulu turned her head slowly. Her face quickly became gentle. She looked at the stone bear and continued, as far as my lifespan is concerned, I can only use my skills once, so for that inexplicable throbbing, after thinking about it for several days and getting no results, I decided not to use the skills. What I didn't expect was that when I saw you 2 days ago, the inexplicable throbbing appeared again, and it was far stronger than the first throbbing. And after I saw the injury on your body, I was even more sure that the source of the throbbing was you. Kabru Sacrifice sighed slightly, turned his head and said to the little Kabru, my child, come here. There are some things you must know, otherwise when you take over my position, you will not be able to find the direction. Little Kabru came over obediently, and reading www.ukenshu.com leaned on his mother's side. I've made up my mind since yesterday morning, so after washing and bathing for a whole day, I sacrificed my life again today. Please don't talk. Kabru's eyes were still gentle, and his tone of voice was still gentle. There is no resentment, but full of kindness. I vaguely saw the future of our race. It is unprecedentedly strong. You, the child of God, stand on the top of the mountains, and all our tribes follow you. Shi Xiong's heart trembled, and his eyebrows frowned. Kabulu said with a smile, child of God, you don't need to be nervous or worry about the future. Do everything as you like. You became a child of God 6 days ago. The Supreme Sun is already deep. I have taken good care of you deeply, and only you can lead all our people to the top. This is the duty assigned to you by the Supreme Sun God, and it is also what you must do when you come to this world. This seems a bit of a pun, and Shi Xiong is surprised. If Kabulu's sacrifice is really clear, then what she said is really right. It seems that the Kabru sacrifice is really a bit difficult. 6 days ago, wasn't that the time when one's soul was born? Kabru sacrificed his head and said to his daughter, the sky was full of red clouds when you were born, so your name is Hongyun. This name also means that you will be a long-lived sacrifice. Before the child of God appeared, I am not sure yet, but when he appeared in front of me, I was finally sure that my child would not sacrifice his lifespan like me in the future. Hongyun, you only need to follow in the footsteps of God's child in the future, support him unconditionally, then you will stay young forever. Chapter 17, Protector. Kabru sacrificed to death. That is obviously only 35 years old, but it looks like a 100-year-old magical sacrifice just died. A few hours after speaking with Shi Xiong and her daughter Kabulu at noon that day, Kabulu offered a smile in front of everyone in the Gaoshu tribe and stopped breathing. Kabulu walked peacefully, seemingly painless. Of course, before she was dying, she announced in front of all those who had fallen, that the next Kabul priest would be her daughter Hong Yun. So, this 20-year-old mother with 2 children became the highest priest of the Gaoshu tribe and even more than a dozen small tribes around it. All these stone bears are very clear about what they mean, because before the Kabul sacrifice summoned all the people who fell, she and her daughter Hong Yun chatted alone for nearly an hour. Even if Shi Xiong is a son of God, he has to wait outside. After Hong Yun walked out of the wooden house with his eyes flushed red, it took another 2 hours before the Kabul sacrifice slowly closed his eyes under the sorrowful gaze of all the people who fell. Because Kabru sacrificed to be dressed up before his death, there was no need to clean up her body. It's just that because she is the high priest of the tribe, and Kabru's name is very tall, so the funeral of Kabru's sacrifice will not be held 5 days later, and her body will stop in that wooden house. In Hong Yun's words, these 5 days are the time to send letters to the surrounding tribes. At that time, the great figures of the Cherokee Red City and White City will also come to attend the funeral. After all, although the Kabul sacrifice is no longer the high priest of the entire Cherokee tribe, no one dares to underestimate the Kabul sacrifice. After all, during the centuries more than 200 years ago, the Kabul sacrifice has always been the high priest of the Cherokee tribe. Even the chiefs of the Cherokee tribe have changed many families, but Kabru sacrifice has always been the high priest of the Cherokee tribe. Stand firm. If it weren't for the Kabru priest who had voluntarily stepped down as the Cherokee high priest, the entire Cherokee high priest would still be called the Kabru high priest. Although his mother passed away, Hong Yun did not appear to be so sad. After all, as the future Kabru sacrifice, she will not have too much personal feelings from then on. It's like Kabulu, who has just passed away. She has a daughter and 2 sons, but apart from her concern about Hong Yun, she almost never cares about the other 2 sons. In Hong Yun's words, it was because the mother found the potential in her own body, so she took good care of herself, and the reason was to train herself into the next generation of Kabul sacrifice. After the death of the previous generation of Kabru sacrifices, the new generation of Kabru sacrifices will not become in front of all the descendants under the witness of the big figures from the Red City and the White City. After the old generation Kabru sacrifices and funerals, a new generation of Kabul sacrifices. This process has been going on since that generation of Kabru priests stepped down as the Cherokee high priest and came to the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains. The Kabru sacrifice is really important to the entire Cherokee tribe. Even if they no longer serve as the high priest of the Cherokee tribe, every high priest of the Cherokee tribe respects the Kabru sacrifice very much. Therefore, whenever a new Kabru priest takes office, the Cherokee tribe will send a big man to witness. Although Hong Yun has not yet become an official new generation of Kabru sacrifice, she also has certain powers. For example, she now has the right to choose a guardian for herself. Every high priest of Kabru will have 2 guardians. These guardians are the most powerful warriors in the tribe. Once these powerful warriors are selected as guardians by the high priest, their identities will immediately increase a lot. And when these powerful warriors become the guardians of the Kabru high priest, they will use their lives and their entire lives to protect the high priest, even without listening to the chief's orders. Although the line of Kabru's sacrifice later resigned as the Cherokee high priest, the guardian still exists. Hong Yun publicly announced that the most brave warrior in the tribe, Big Bear, will become one of her guardians. As for the other guardian, she still needs to think about it for a while before deciding. This decision was beyond everyone's expectations. Shi Xiong even saw some strong young people's unbridled and provocative eyes on him. Obviously, these young people all hope that they can become the guardians of the great Kabru sacrifice, but they are not happy because they are not happy. However, perhaps his physique was too strong, or his record of 1-6 and killing 3 Chikasha fighters in the Battle of the Shaggy Cattle tribe was too brilliant. Those young people just used his eyes were provocative and he didn't make any extraordinary moves. Of course, Shi Xiong didn't mind those guys doing it on himself. He was happy to find a chicken to be killed at this time to scare the monkeys with ulterior motives. For Hong Yun's decision, to be honest, Shi Xiong was somewhat unexpected. Why? Did you choose me?" The two children who watched Hong Yun cried and were taken away by their father. Hong Yun's face showed a look of dissatisfaction and grief. From then on, Hong Yun could only be between her two children. Choose one of them to take care of. The child from reading www.hokenshu.com will be the future Kabru sacrifice. This is a very helpless and sad thing for Hong Yun, so Shi Xiong decisively changed the subject. "After all, I am an outsider, and I haven't been here for long. Don't you think that being the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice is a good way to conceal your identity? My mother told me that the identity of the sons of God should not be known to others in the recent period, and my mother also told me that I must listen to your opinions so as to prevent me from becoming the same person as my mother." After a pause, Hong Yun's face showed a sad expression. "You have seen my mother's appearance. I really don't want to be that way. You are a child of God, so what you say or what you want to do, then it must be the decree issued by the Supreme Sun God. Since this is the will of the gods, our Kabul sacrifices cannot be violated, and we can only support unconditionally. This in itself is the meaning of the Kabul sacrifices." Mother said, "Only to obey your words. I can live longer if I support you with my full support." I never doubt my mother's words in this matter. Even Shi Xiong could not think of a refutation of this kind of explanation, although Shi Xiong understood that as long as he refused, Hong Yun would never say anything. In this age of ignorance, God's will is more than everything. The guardian is the guardian. Shi Xiong quickly made a decision. And Hong Yun just died of mother. There is no need to make this girl more sad at this time. But Ashu Jeoniu and Kuwemo also know their identities, and there are certain things that must be told to them. P.S. Bowen, thank you for I gave my hand to the first kiss, it is so red. Spring Dragon 500 rewards. Both are old buddies. Thank you for your support. 3 changes today. Add more to the first rudder master of this book. Chapter 18. The biggest secret of the Kabul sacrifice. As the saying goes, if you want to deceive others, you must first deceive yourself. The stone bear just wants to survive in this era, and then look for opportunities to develop the tribe, and then see if the situation can prevent the future massacre against North American Indians. As a person who has received modern education, Stone Bear really does not want to see millions of Indians being killed by those white people like pigs. After all, no matter how ignorant and backward the Indians are, they are also fresh lives. Since the great Orinda, the sun god, has brought himself to this era more than 250 years later, I am afraid I can't bear to see those people who have been worshipping his old man for thousands of years have been slaughtered. Perhaps, the sun and his old man brought himself over because he wanted to save these Indians with his own hands. So Shi Xiong found a goal for himself. But it is definitely not so easy to accomplish this goal. Although I have a strong physique and have more than 200 years of insight and knowledge than anyone in this era, this does not mean that I can reach the sky in one step. Stone Bear knows very well that if he stands up and says loudly to these Indians, "I am sent by the Supreme Sun to save you, you all believe in me," then in the next moment, it is estimated that my body will be filled with countless bone spears and arrows. These guys will definitely see themselves as a blasphemer. Although the North American Indians in the age of obscurity are very foolish, their stubbornness is also terrifying. Once they preconceive that they are blasphemous, they cannot survive even if they have 3 heads and 6 arms. Ishikama doesn't want to be pierced into a hedgehog or porcupine just from a car accident to this age. Therefore, the meal has to be eaten bite by bite, and things have to be done step by step. The first step is to give yourself an identity that is tall enough, and then let a small group of people with status recognize their identity, so that they can develop quietly. After all the people of the tribe have recognized their abilities, the identity that they have arranged for themselves will be made public to everyone. Therefore, what Shi Xiong has to do now is to trick himself into the past psychological hypnosis. He is a magician. However, Shi Xiong really did not expect that he would encounter a magical Kabru sacrifice. The methods he prepared to prove that he was a divine envoy hadn't been used yet, and he suddenly changed the other one. His name is placed on the top of his head, Son of God. This title is more than that of God's envoy. God's messenger is nothing but the messenger of God walking among the people. It is an outsider. And the child of God, needless to say, and the gods are the two fathers and sons, but they can no longer be iron. Han Yun, I'm really curious about how your mother saw my identity. Well, if you don't want to say it, just take this sentence as I haven't asked. Shi Xiong took a bite of tortillas. This kind of the baked corn tortillas were a bit hard, and they tasted a little bit squeaky, but they were full of food. They were the best food in the tribe besides meat. Do you really want to know? Han Yun asked, tilting his head. This is about the greatest secret of our Kabul sacrificial line. Shi Xiong shrugged. If you don't want to say it, then forget it. I don't care. Well, as the most loyal servant serving the Supreme Sun God, I can't hide anything from you. Han Yun put down the tortilla in his hand. Actually, I haven't used the secret skills of Kabul sacrifice, but that day when my mother was talking to me alone, she handed me a very old sheepskin roll and a dozen silver needles. The surface of the sheepskin roll was painted with a red human body, with many black dots and black lines connected between it. Then my mother told me that this sheepskin scroll and these silver needles are the biggest secrets of the Kabul sacrifice. My mother told me that the sheepskin scroll was obtained by an ancestor of the Kabru line from a Viking pirate who was in a shipwreck very long ago. The ancestor of the Kabru line saved it at that time to the Viking pirate. In return, the Viking pirate gave my ancestor these two things. The ancestor pondered for a long time. Only then did he try to pierce himself with the silver needles according to the black spots marked on the sheepskin scroll. As a result, he didn't know how to pierce and felt that his perception seemed to expand infinitely. And then the ancestor actually vaguely felt some inexplicable things. The ancestor wrote down those inexplicable things, and then in the following years, those things he had sensed happened unexpectedly. That ancestor realized this. The sheepskin scroll and the silver needles actually have the effect of making one feel the future. Then, the ancestor of the Kabru line smoothly became the high priest of the Cherokee tribe, and kept talking about this method and passing on these things. With that said, Han Yun stood up and walked to a corner of the house, moved a clay pot, lifted a slate from under the pot, and took out a wooden box from below. After opening it, he took out the contents and walked back. The bag of things was placed in front of Shi Xiong. Shi Xiong opened the small bag, and what Cheng was in front of was a sheepskin scroll with a picture of a human body and a dozen very thin silver needles. The sun is on top. Isn't this the human meridian diagram and acupuncture needles for acupuncture? Shi Xiong couldn't help but said in surprise. Do you know these things? Yeah. Shi Xiong looked up at Han Yun. I have seen this kind of thing in the guidance given to me by the Supreme Sun God. To be precise, these two things come from the Far East, where there is one. The magical country is called Huaxia. Well, let's put it this way. According to the instructions of the Sun God, we and the people of that country actually belong to the same race. Even if we are tens of thousands of miles away from each other, we are indeed in harmony with each other. The people living in that country belong to the same race, and we share the same ancestor with them. Han Yun was stunned. She still couldn't understand what Shi Xiong was talking about. As for the two things you took out, they belong to witch doctors in that remote country. Almost any witch doctor in that country would use this kind of thing. Han Yun muttered dully, what a powerful country that must be. Ishikaman now understands why the Kabul ritual possesses such a magical skill, and every time the skill is used, it will consume a large amount of its life. Quite simply, the ancestor that Kabru sacrificed to came into contact with Viking pirates who came to North America a long time ago, then happened to rescue a pirate who was in a shipwreck, and then got this parchment scroll and acupuncture needles. It is estimated that the pirate does not know the origin of these things. As a result, the ancestor who Kabru sacrificed did not know how he happened to try out how to use these things. Acupuncture and moxibustion is a very magical technique. It can not only cure diseases, but also kill people. Similarly, if acupuncture points and acupuncture methods are found, it can greatly stimulate the human body and stimulate people's huge potential in a short period of time. Needless to say, in the ancient records of China, there was indeed this kind of needle method, but it has been lost in modern times. Using acupuncture and moxibustion to stimulate the human body's potential can certainly make people burst into great powers in a short period of time, but it is also very harmful to the body. It is not an exaggeration to use drinking poison to quench thirst to describe this domineering acupuncture method. The ancestor of Cabru's line is very likely to have developed a needle method that can greatly stimulate the human body's potential by chance. Only a reading www.hukanshu.com can stimulate it in a short period of time. The brain greatly increases the perception of the brain, and finally forms a magical skill that can vaguely perceive the future. Scientists have studied that if the human brain is developed to a certain level, it can ignore the barriers of time and space, but unfortunately, humans have not been able to figure out how to improve the degree of brain development. But the ancestor of Cabru's line used this kind of acupuncture method that happened to do things that many scientists in later generations could not do. It's just that this method of acupuncture may be magical, but it is also extremely harmful to the body. Although it can greatly improve the development of the brain and perceive the future vaguely, when the acupuncture effect is over, its self-injury is equivalent to the loss of 20 years of life. For the ignorant Indians, being able to vaguely perceive the future is a means only available to gods, so even if it does great harm to the body, this kind of magical method of killing 1,000 enemies and self-defeating 10,000 has become Cabru sacrifice, a great secret that has never been passed down, and it has been passed down for hundreds of years. This is the biggest secret of Cabru's sacrifice. Did your mother give you the method and order of acupuncture? Shi Xiong asked softly for a long time. Well, my mother gave it to me before she died. Hong Yun nodded. Then remember this method forever, but it is best not to use this method in the future, because this method is too harmful to the body. After a pause, Shi Xiong smiled and said, with me, you won't need you to perceive the future, because I know what the future looks like. The Supreme Sun has already pointed me. Chapter 19, Rushing. The funeral of the Kabul sacrifice is very grand. When I was a child, I once saw the funeral of the last leader of the long-hair cattle tribe, but compared to the funeral of the Kabul sacrifice, it is really nothing. Perhaps, only the funeral of the chief of the tribe will be bigger than the funeral of Kabulu, but Shi Xiong has not seen the funeral of the chief, so he can't compare it. During the 5 days when Kabulu offered sacrifices to the spirits, many people came from all directions one after another. Most of these people are the leaders and sacrifices of various small tribes living near the Great Smoky Mountains. When the Cherokee moved south, their main foothold was not in the Great Smoky Mountains, but to the north. It is as if the largest tribe of the Cherokee is now the royal palace where Chief Cherokee is located, in a flat and spacious valley about 100 kilometers north of the Great Smoky Mountains. About 200 years ago, one of the ancestors whom Cabru sacrificed to resign as the Cherokee high priest, took his tribe and left the seat of the Cherokee royal court, along the Appalachian Mountains. The valley continued to the south, and finally settled near the Great Smoky Mountains. After this large tribe settled down, it was dispersed. In addition, in the past 200 years, the Gaoshu tribe has divided out several small tribes, just like the long-hair cattle tribe, so almost all of these small tribes living around the Great Smoky Mountains are the descendants of the Kabul rituals. Therefore, for every funeral of Kabulu's sacrifices, the leaders of these small tribes and sacrifices must rush over to attend the funeral. In addition to these people, the Cherokee's most important Red City and Baichin also sent great figures to attend the funeral, and the Cherokee's royal court also sent a high priest to preside over the funeral. The so-called Red City and White City do not refer to the two cities. In this era, even the Cherokees with relatively developed civilizations could not build cities. The correct names for the Red City and the White City should be the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance. After the Cherokees were driven out of the Great Lakes by the Iroquois and Delawares, the Cherokees learned from the pain and prepared to change some of their previous lives and ways of warfare. When the Cherokee gained a foothold in southern Appalachia, the entire tribe was divided into two alliances, namely the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance. Each alliance is composed of many tribes, And finally in the Cherokee, two supreme governing bodies have formed near Renwang Court. The Red City Alliance Lord War. All the tribal leaders of the Red City Alliance are unified under the command of a supreme military leader, responsible for external operations. The White City Alliance is the leader of peace. All the tribal leaders of the White City Alliance are also unified under the command of a supreme peace leader, responsible for all internal affairs, including providing sufficient logistics for the Red City Alliance and developing internal affairs. Whether it is the Red City Alliance or the White City Alliance, it is the most important governing body of the Cherokee tribe. The top leaders of the two major alliances are personally designated by the chiefs of the Cherokee tribe, and the two alliance leaders are only responsible to the chiefs. Using the political division of later generations, if the chief is the president, then the leader of the Red City Alliance is the commander of the three services, and the leader of the White City Alliance is the prime minister. The separation of military and internal affairs, and then unified management by the chief, this allowed the Cherokee to quickly gain a foothold in Appalachia and quickly became the largest Indian tribe in the area. The tough Chickasaws can't fight against the increasingly large Cherokees, they can only use sneak attacks. This time, the highest leaders of the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance came to attend the funeral of the Kabul sacrifice in person. Even if they are noble as these two leaders, they must maintain sufficient respect for the Kabul sacrifice. Other tribesmen may not be aware of the power of the high priest of Kabru, but as them, they know very well. Moreover, even the high priests of the tribe who had a higher status than them rushed over in person, and there was no reason for them not to come. Therefore, in these 5 days, the Gaoshu tribe, which originally had only 300 people, ushered in 100 big figures with noble status. The leaders and sacrifices of those small tribes also have very noble identities, although in the eyes of Shi Xiong, such so-called noble and big people are inferior to the poor and low-middle peasants of later generations, but they are indeed big people in the Cherokee tribe. After these noble figures came to the Gaoshu tribe, the first thing they had to do was to pay homage to the Kabulu sacrifice of the previous generation. This is common in funerals all over the world, which is the so-called consolation. Then, these big figures will personally visit the red cloud that will take over the new generation of Kabru. Although the Kabulu priest has long ceased to serve as the high priest of the Cherokee tribe, its status in the entire Cherokee tribe is still very high. Even the tribal high priest who came here to participate in the funeral is very much towards Hong Yun, showed enough respect. Because they all know that as long as the Kabul priest is willing, then the position of the tribal high priest is absolutely no one else's. And the tribal high priest is a real big man who can sit on an equal footing with the chief. I'm reading www.hukanshu.com. As the guardian of the new generation of Kabru sacrifices, Shi Xiong accompanied Hong Yun to participate in the process of meeting the big figures. Although big figures expressed serious surprise and shock at Shi Xiong's physique. With such a large and strong warrior, I am afraid that the entire Cherokee tribe cannot find a second one, and no leader would dislike such a powerful warrior. It's a pity that they can only covet secretly. After all, this powerful warrior has now become the guardian of the new generation of Kabul sacrifice, which is beyond their reach. Even if the chief came in person, he couldn't take away this powerful warrior. The funeral of the Kabulu sacrifice also brought a huge burden to the Gaoshu tribe. These people from are all big shots, so the sick Lile had to drag the sick to receive these big shots. As a result, only 1 day passed and Lile could no longer hold it. This guy was slapped by an adult black bear and almost died. Even after raising him for a while, his injury did not improve. Now that he is tossing like this, I'm afraid he really can't hold on anymore. Similarly, the arrival of these big people has also made the Gaoshu tribe's food withstand a huge test. Even in the age of ignorance, people from far away are all visitors. This is still common, so the Gaoshu tribe must prepare enough food for these people. Even if you don't eat well, at least you have to be full. Originally, the food in the Gaoshu tribe was not so abundant. When these people came, the warriors of the entire tribe were mobilized to go out hunting, but even this made the food of the Gaoshu tribe become stretched. Fortunately, This group of people will leave the Gaoshu tribe as soon as the funeral is over. So the Gaoshu tribe gritted their teeth and persisted for 5 days until their funeral was held on this day. Chapter 20, Funeral. North American Indians, especially the Cherokee, practice burial. On a sunny hillside south of the Gaoshu tribe, is the location of the tribe's cemetery. As long as the people of the tribe die, they will be buried here. In the center of the cemetery, there stands a stone totem pole about 10 meters high. This totem pole was erected by the Kabulu priest who first led the tribe to live in this area. It is no different from the totem poles of other tribes. This totem pole is completely built of stone. It is depicted with the of the sun as the head, the of the sky, the of the earth, the of thunder, the of rain, the of wind, the of eagle, and the of bear, many totem gods under the wolf god. On this day, 4 long ribbons of different colors were hung on this totem pole. In the Cherokee belief, these 4 ribbons symbolized the 4 directions of the universe. The black ribbon among the 4 ribbons symbolizes the land of Thor, west, because the of thunder and lightning lives here and can bring rain to the people. The white ribbon symbolizes the land of giants, north, because the great white cleansing wind blows from it. The red ribbon symbolizes the place where the sun shines forever, east, the light will sprout from then on, the stars live here, and give human wisdom. The yellow ribbon symbolizes the oncoming land, south, where the power of summer and the growth of all things comes out. The 4 holy spirits gathered together to assist the sun to manage the sky and the earth. Here, the aloft sun is like a broad-minded father, caring for his children. Under the totem pole, there is a beautiful eagle feather and a bison leather. The eagle feather symbolizes that the tribe will spread their wings and fly high like an eagle, while the wild cowhide symbolizes the Mother Earth. In the Cherokee faith, all Cherokee people are like all the birds and beasts, flowers, plants and trees, born from this, and they will in the arms of this mother like a baby for the rest of their lives. All the Cherokee people who came to the funeral lay down in front of this tall totem pole and prayed the most religious prayers. When everyone had finished their prayers, the high priest from the Cherokee royal court personally presided over the funeral. All my people, the great Kabru priest has returned to the embrace of the Holy Spirit, let us see her off and pray. All the people's mouths sent out a uniform hey, 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 for half a minute. Then the high priest began to pray to the totem pole. Ancestor, the great Holy Spirit, you are eternal, you are the only. There is no one else to pray for except you. You create yourself, you create what everything you see, you create everything, you complete all of the stars in the starry sky, you create the 4 directions of this land. That day, you created everything. Ancestors, great Holy Spirit, please lean down and listen to my voice. Please face the sunset. Please look at me, God of thunder and lightning. Look at me. Please look at me in the land of the white giant. Please look at me toward the place where the stars and daylight appear. Please look at me in the summer land, the eagle living above the sky. Ah, please look. And you, Mother Earth, the only mother, it is you who pity your child. Listen to my voice. The 4 directions of the earth, we are all children of the same mother. Please give me the strength to walk on the soft earth, the earth that nurtures all things. Please give me eyes, please give me the ability, let me be like you, see everything clearly, understand everything. Only with your power, I can break through the predicament. Great Holy Spirit, great Holy Spirit, my ancestors, on the earth, thousands of living beings belong to one family. Only with compassion can the earth breed all things. Only by treating these countless children and grandchildren equally can they be treated equally. Break through the predicament, embark on a good road to life, and walk to the day of rest. I pray here, please listen to my prayer. My voice is so weak, but so from the heart. Please listen to my prayer. Heikatu Arrow. The high priest's prayer lasted for a full half an hour. To be honest, Shi Xiong could not understand what the high priest was saying, but he could feel that the high priest was really doing it religiously. Prayer. All the people followed the prayers of the high priest, or bowed down, or prostrated themselves, until the end of the prayer. The Kabul priest was put into the pit in a state of being crouched into a fetus. In the custom of North American Indians, the dead are buried in this way, which means returning to their origins. Every dead tribe will be buried in this way. This time is what the Cherokee people call the month of the beaver, which is also November of the Ad, because in this month, the weather starts to get cold. In addition to food, the Cherokee also need to wear, and the fur of the is the ideal material, so this month was named Month of the Beaver. The foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains in November are already relatively cold, but at this time, the sky is raining again. Because there are no east-west mountains in North America, almost all mountains are north-south, so the cold wind from the Arctic can invade from the northernmost part of the North American continent to the southernmost point without any barriers. Therefore, in the Great Smoky Mountains, in late autumn the cold rain looked particularly gloomy and cold. As the guardian of the new generation of Kabru sacrifices, he has been by Hong Yun's side, and his position is also the best. Therefore, Shi Xiong can clearly see the leader of Li Lei lying on the sliding pole. Leader Li Lei's complexion is very bad, as pale as a dead man, and he is thinner than when he first saw him. The stone bear, who has rich experience in later generations, can easily judge the life expectancy of leader Li Lei. How long will it be left? In this era of lack of medical care and medicine, let alone the Indians, even Europeans are still practicing bloodletting therapy. It is estimated that in more than 10 years, the current French Emperor Louis XV will be infected with smallpox. During the bloodletting to treat smallpox, he was killed because of the bleeding. As for the European colonists in North America now, they still use bloodletting therapy for those unsolvable diseases, and this bloodletting therapy was also brought to North America by these colonists, and the Indians also learned bloodletting therapy. The reason why Li Lei's face is so pale, it is estimated that this guy was often bled. Where is the cure? This is simply a reminder. Very strange, Shi Xiong didn't know how he did it. In such a solemn occasion, he had such an idea. These lovely but sad Indians really need someone to save. P.S. Everyone, if you have a recommendation ticket in your pocket, don't waste it. Lao Mo is in urgent need of your recommendation ticket. Chapter 21, Wrong Planting Method. Strong Bear. When I planted corn with Lamtesa that day, they said that this kind of farming method was very backward. You said that you got guidance from the Supreme Sun God. Then, what is the farming method that the sun directed? Hong Yun. Oh no, it's time to call her Kabru sacrifice. He tilted his head and asked the stone bear. Kabulu priest lives in the big wooden house that originally belonged to her mother. This wooden house, second only to the chamber in size, is an exclusive room for the Kabulu priest. There is no one else in the house. She has not chosen the second guardian of the Kabul sacrifice from among the clans, so she is the only one beside her now. Shi Xiong was not polite, and said directly, first of all, the time of cultivation is wrong. It is about to enter the winter. Sowing corn at this time, the corn will only end with death. The harsh winter will completely freeze the corn seeds to death. Don't you even know this common sense? However, the Pueblo people who taught us how to grow corn can grow corn in the month of the November. We used to grow corn at this time, although the yield is higher than in the month of strawberry. 6 month, planted a lot less corn, but some corn can be produced. Shi Xiong helplessly covered his forehead. He really couldn't explain this question to the newly appointed Kabru priest. Do you want to tell her that the latitude of Texas where the Pueblo people live is much lower than that of Tennessee, especially the southwestern corner of Texas where some Pueblo people live, where is close to the Tropic of Cancer, coupled with being close to the Gulf of Mexico, the climate there is much warmer than Tennessee. It's okay to plant corn in November, but that doesn't mean that you're also okay to plant corn this month in Tennessee. But the problem is that once I say those things, this Kabru priest who has a strong desire for knowledge can definitely ask him not to live. So Shi Xiong said directly, the Supreme Sun said that we Cherokee and Pueblo are different. We can only grow corn in the strawberry moon. Words immediately silenced the Kabul priest. But then she quickly told a fact that Stone Bear had to face. Although the corn output we planted in the moon of the beaver is very low, we can always supplement the tribe's food. If we give up on the moon planting corn, relying only on the corn planted and the strawberry moon, is not enough for the people of our tribe. What should we do? Shi Xiong was taken aback, and then smiled. That's why I said there's a problem with your planting method. After a pause, Shi Xiong continued, in addition to the wrong season for your corn planting, the farming method is also very, very wrong. First of all, if you want to grow the crops with high yields, you must first plow the cultivated land. When you plant corn, you don't even plow the plow. How can the mother of the earth supplement the corn? Therefore, plowing the cultivated land before planting is something that must be done. Secondly, after plowing is completed, sowing is to be carried out, which is to bury the seeds in the soil, instead of throwing corn seeds directly into the ground as you did. Don't you be afraid that the birds in the sky will throw you down, eat all of the seeds. The Kabru sacrificial face was flushed with these words. It is estimated that she herself knows that most of the corn seeds they sown every year are probably eaten by the birds. After that, after the seeds are planted, they need to be watered, fertilized, and weeded, so as to ensure that all the mothers of the earth will feed the corn. When the harvest season arrives, the heavy corn will bear the fullest. It's impossible for you to grow it like this, because the yield is far worse. How much can the difference be? Kabru priest asked curiously. Then how much corn do you grow when you grow the most corn? Shi Xiong asked rhetorically. Hong Yun hesitated and said, if it is corn planted in the month of strawberry, when it is harvested in the month of harvest, September, or the month of hunter, October, a field can produce up to 5 bags of corn kernels. This result once again made Shi Xiong a little bit unbearable to look directly at him. In the Cherokee's unit of measurement, there is no imperial unit, not to mention the metric unit. Their unit of measurement is very simple. For example, this square piece of land refers to a square piece of land about 80 meters by 80 meters, which is about 640 square meters for later generations, which is slightly smaller than an acre of land for later generations. As for a bag of corn kernels, it is even simpler, because when the Cherokees measure food production, they use the capacity of a bag to calculate. I've seen this kind of pocket stone bear. It's not too big, it's almost half the size of the dough bag of later generations. If it is full, it can hold about 20 kilograms of corn kernels. In other words, according to what Hong Yun said, the corn grown by the Cherokees now www.wuxiaspot.com, the harvest of 1 mu of land is about 100 caddies. This yield ratio is compared with the corn field that produced more than tons of corn in later generations. Even compared to the later generations of fields with an average yield of more than 1,000 caddies per mu, this yield is horrible. Maize is different from wheat. Corn is a high-yield crop, which is universally recognized. If you plant corn in later generations, if your acre of land is less than 1,000 caddies, you are embarrassed to tell others. But in this era, among the Indians, if the yield per mu exceeds 100 caddies, it is considered a bumper harvest. Fortunately, there is a lot of wasteland around the Gaoshu tribe, and there is enough land for these people to toss. If the Gaoshu tribe were on the island of Japan, I am afraid they would have starved to death. Seeing Shi Xiong's face with constipation, Hong seemed to feel a little embarrassed. She said, Dragon Bear, if the planting method is guided by the Supreme Sun God, how many corn kernels can one field produce? Shi Xiong lowered his head and thought for a while and said, the corn kernels produced by one area should be at least 25 to 30 bags. If the fertilizer can keep up, it is not a big deal to produce 50 bags. Impossible things. How is this possible? Hong Yun said as he looked at Shi Xiong in disbelief. Then you just don't believe in the Supreme Sun God? Shi Xiong said with a smile, and Hong Yun no longer spoke. Well, I won't make you any more. Since you brought up this matter today, I will show you the instructions of the Sun God. But we don't grow corn anymore. We are going to grow a crop called winter wheat. So when the strawberry month arrives next year, the winter wheat will be ripe. After the harvest, you can continue to plant corn. Ishika's words made Hong Yun's eyes brighten. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22, Ironware. As one of the world's 3 major cereals, wheat has been domesticated by humans as early as 10,000 years ago. However, North America is not the origin of wheat. The origin of wheat is the Mesopotamia of the Middle East. It spread to Spain and Italy about 8,000 years ago. From then on, Europeans began to grow wheat. Until Columbus discovered the New World, European colonists began to colonize the New World frantically, and wheat, an important crop, was brought to the American continent by European colonists. So now most of the North American Indians are still in a state of hunting, but the crop of wheat has begun to spread among the North American Indians. As the Cherokee who first contacted European colonists and cooperated most closely with European colonists, wheat has long become an important source of food for the tribe. Just like planting corn, the Europeans did not tell the Cherokee how to grow wheat correctly, and the Cherokee did not figure out how to grow wheat for hundreds of years. Then he said something that was a bit unpleasant. Wheat, like corn, was ruined in the hands of the Cherokee. However, the Cherokee people have already germinated a farming civilization after all, so in the more than 10 days when they came to the Gaoshu tribe, the stone bear has found a lot of crop seeds in the tribe. Is not only the seeds of corn and wheat, but also potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, tomatoes, and various beans. Stone bears have found a lot in this small tribe. This is out and out good news. Shi Xiong has long known that North American Indians have made an indelible contribution to the world in terms of food, especially potatoes and sweet potatoes. Such super high-yield crops have been fed billions of people, but after seeing these high-yield crops, he was still a little excited. But Shi Xiong is also very puzzled. These guys are clearly guarding these high-yield crops. Why are there not enough food every year? Shi Xiong just felt that the burden on his body was heavier. Potatoes cannot be planted at this season, and can only be planted until the beginning of spring in the coming year. Similarly, sweet potatoes are not suitable for planting in winter, let alone corn and so on. Therefore, only winter wheat can be planted. Is it okay to plant wheat at this time? We only started planting wheat in the month of Worm, March. Ishikama shook his head helplessly. It is possible to plant wheat in spring, but in our place, planting wheat in spring is a bit of a deficit. Planting wheat in autumn is the best time. Han Yun wanted to continue to ask why, but seeing Shi Xiong there was busy watching the seeds, she just opened her mouth but made no sound. These seeds are good, they can be sown. After a long time, Shi Xiong stood up straight and said very satisfied. Then I arranged for someone to sow these seeds down. Infected by Shi Xiong's joy, Han Yun also showed a smile on his face. No, Han Yun, you must remember that no matter what kind of crop you are planting in the future, you must not just sow the seeds into the ground like before. Sowing and sowing, before the seeds are sowed, the first thing to do is plowing the land. Only if the land is plowed well, the seeds that are planted will grow better, and the yield will be higher in the future. Han Yun didn't understand Shi Xiong's words. Can't we just sow the seeds directly into the ground? Shi Xiong froze for a moment, and then smiled and explained, okay, why not, but the sowing method you used before is called sowing, which is a very crude and primitive sowing method. The crops planted in this way are much lower in yield. According to the guidance of the Supreme Sun God, we do not need to use the method of sowing to sow in the future. We need to use drill or on-demand sowing for sowing, so as to facilitate the management of crops in the growing period, and the grain to be harvested in the future will also be better. Many, seeing Han Yun still want to ask, Shi Xiong waved his hand and said, don't ask first, come with me first. As he said, Shi Xiong put on an animal skin coat and walked out of the sacrificial wooden house with a red cloud. Together, the two came to the farmlands on the edge of the tribe. At the foot of the Great Smoky Mountain in late autumn, there is still a lush greenery. Compared to areas further north, the temperature here is fairly mild. Pieces of flat land are scattered on both banks of the little river. There are more or less crops on it, but none of these crops seem to be alive. Shi Xiong bent down and grabbed a handful of dirt from the ground, rubbed it, and nodded in satisfaction. The land here is really fertile. Little River is not wide, but it is a river originating from the Great Smoky Mountains. If there is more rainfall in a given year, then the mild Little River will still be transformed into an incarnation, an uncontrollable river. The current two banks simply cannot restrain the huge amount of water. Therefore, because of the frequent flooding of Little River, it also brings rich nourishment to the surrounding land, which makes the surrounding land flow oily. These lands are all excellent land. If combined with more advanced farming methods, then our tribe's food will not worry about eating in the future, Shi Xiong said very positively. I'm reading www.hukanshu.com. But in the future, before this, we still need to do a lot of work. For example, it's best to plow the land again, so that it will be more conducive to the growth of crops. Shi Xiong stood beside Hong Yun, pointed his finger at this large piece of land and said with certainty, quite a bit of advice. Charm. Then how to plow? Hong Yun's question made Shi Xiong a little helpless again. Yes, for these backward Indians, knowing that plowing is one thing, but how to plowing is another matter. Is like the current Gaoshu tribe. Even if there is a line of honorable Kabul sacrificial cults living here, this tribe is still very poor and backward. Among other things, the plow and cattle needed to plow the land are not available in the tribe. If you want to plow all of this large area of arable land, if you just point to the bones and spears in the tribe, even if all the people in the tribe are in battle, I am afraid that you will not be able to plow all of these lands in a year. Hong Yun, is there any iron in the tribe? Yes, but not too many. We traded them when the Vasichus came to exchange things, mainly things like pots. Can you get me a few pots? I need iron to build a tool that can be used for farming. Shi Xiong looked at Hong Yun with some expectation. Shi Xiong knows that in this era, even iron pots are valuable possessions of Indians. The North American Indians in this era did not know how to make iron, let alone make steel, so the iron pots and other ironware exchanged from European colonists are very valuable assets. It is obviously not an easy task to get the iron pot from the clansman who owns the iron pot. Hong Yun smiled slightly. Leave it to me. Chapter 23, Coal. Kabulu's prestige is so high in the High Tree tribe that even the tribe leader can't compare with it. Therefore, Hong Yun easily took 3 iron pots from the tribe. Iron pan is the most common kind of cast iron pan, which makes Shi Xiong somewhat disappointed, but if you want to turn pig iron into steel, some preparations need to be done. In this era, there are several best ways to turn a small amount of pig iron into steel, and the best way is to use the steel fry method or the crucible steel making method. The former was mastered by Chinese blacksmiths as early as the late Western Han Dynasty when it was 2,000 years old. Europeans did not master this steel-making method until the middle of the 18th century. As for the latter, it was only invented by the British not long ago, and it is estimated that it has not been promoted yet. However, no matter which method is used, a high-temperature crucible is needed to melt the pig iron. The crucible is easy to say. The southeast of Tennessee and the northwest of Georgia in the past are the largest kaolin-producing areas in the United States. With kaolin, a simple high-temperature resistant clay crucible can be made, which can be used to melt pig iron. But if you want to melt pig iron with a melting point of more than 1,500 Baidu, you need the necessary fuel. It is obviously not feasible to use wood as fuel, and the temperature generated by the burning of wood cannot even soften the pig iron. Therefore, to melt these iron pots, Shi Xiong must find coal. However, the stone bear stayed in Knoxville for a few days before the soul passed. He knew that there were many small coal mines near Knoxville. Although the reserves were not large, they were all good anthracite. One of the coal mines is at the foot of a small hill about 15 kilometers away from the Gaoshu tribe. When Shi Xiong went to the Great Smoky Mountains to play, he had seen this open-pit coal mine that had been closed for a long time. However, although the coal mine has been closed, the mine can still be seen. So Shi Xiong found a horse from the tribe, then took a bow and arrow and a bone spear, and then took the Kuwait to the open coal mine in memory. The Appalachian Mountains that run through eastern North America are extremely rich in mineral resources. In this seemingly fragmented mountain range, there is a large amount of coal and iron ore. The reason why the United States was able to become the country with the highest output value in the world is basically the rich mineral resources contained in this huge mountain range. Although most of the coal and iron resources in the Appalachian Mountains are located in those areas in the north of Tennessee, there are also many mineral resources at the foot of the Great Smoky Mountains, but these resources are not as abundant as in the north, and large-scale mining is of little value. But for the Stone Bear and the Little Gaoshu tribe, these resources are extremely abundant. Even if you look at the entire Cherokee family, these scattered resources are enough. Walking eastward along the flat land in the valley, after walking out about 15 kilometers, Shi Xiong saw the somewhat familiar hill. Just at the foot of this small hill with an altitude of no more than 300 meters, there is a high-quality anthracite open-pit mine. At the time, the Appalachian Frontier Museum said that this anthracite coal mine had been mined for decades. Before the 1950s, this coal mine was the largest open-pit coal mine near Knoxville. Most of the winter heating in Knoxville comes from this open-pit coal mine. Even though Kuwait didn't understand why Silly had took him out in this season, he was still very happy. Being able to come out alone is a great thing for people of their age, even if Kuwait has already married, but he is only 16 years old this year. In later generations, this is the age when you just entered high school. Stupid head, why are we here? Although we respect the stupid head that has undergone tremendous changes, Kuwait still can't change her name to Shi Xiong. After all, the two of them are really the kind of being naked from childhood. When you grow up and grow up, the relationship is not ordinary closeness. Shi Xiong was not angry with this name of friend. I'm looking for a fuel that can not only keep warm, but also melt iron. As he said, Shi Xiong got off his horse, and after wandering around for a few laps, he stooped and picked up a piece of black hair, bright stone. I don't see it. What I need to find is this black stone. Shi Xiong raised the coal in his hand. Hurry up and looked at the coal in Shi Xiong's hand, and said in surprise, I have seen this kind of black stone several times. It can burn, but it produces poisonous gas and can kill people. My mother told me that this kind of stone is a devil. The excrement contains powerful evil. Shi Xiong rolled his eyes. This is the first time he heard that coal is actually the excrement of the devil. Isn't it a bit too big? But it is inevitable, let alone Indians. Even the ancestors of China used coal as a real fuel after they discovered coal for thousands of years. Although the ancestors of China used coal to smelt iron as early as the Western Han Dynasty, heating was not used until a long time later. The carbon monoxide produced when coal is burned is indeed a toxic gas for the ancients who could not get rid of the smoke. It is inevitable for the Indians to treat coal as the excrement of the devil. The ancients always named some unsolvable things or things in the name of gods or demons. Don't worry, I'm reading www.ukenshu.com. Fast horse, this is a good thing. With this thing, we can smelt ironware by ourselves in the future, and it will be the moon of the long night, December, and the moon of the wolf, one. It's best to use this to keep warm during the month. In order to completely dispel Kuwaima's doubts and worries, Shi Xiong added, this is what the Supreme Sun told me. This sentence is more effective than any explanation, and the worry on Kuwaima's face is immediately gone. This area will become an open-pit coal mine in 150 years, so the coal seam here is extremely shallow, and some coal blocks are simply exposed on the surface. Shi Xiong and Kuwait picked up for a long time before they picked up hundreds of caddies of coal. After packing them with animal skin bags and tying them to the horse's back, the two men led the horses on the way back. The horse is the most valuable property among the North American Indian tribes. At this time, no Indian was willing to ride a horse with more than 100 caddies on its back. It is also a very tragic thing. North America originally lived with a large number of horses tens of thousands of years ago, but I don't know how these horses disappeared in a short period of time. As a result, the Mongols passed the Bering Strait land bridge. After coming to America, I have not seen a horse. However, When European colonists carried a large number of horses to the other side of the Atlantic Ocean by ship, the horses became the most precious wealth and most loyal partner of the Indians. There are only more than 20 horses in the Gaoshu tribe, all of which are exchanged for the whites with various furs. The Cherokee people have not yet fully mastered their ability to train horses, so horses are very precious and precious treasures. If it weren't for Stone Bear to be the guardian of the Cabru sacrifice, he would also not come to horses. Chapter 24, Deer. The 30-mile journey back and forth, plus there was not much time lost in the coal mine, so when Shi Xiong and Kuema returned to the Gaoshu tribe, it was just past noon. The Cherokees of this era are similar to the Chinese people, and they hardly eat lunch. They usually eat one meal at about 10 in the morning, and then eat one meal at about 5 in the afternoon, 2 meals a day. This custom makes Shi Xiong really uncomfortable, since coming to this age, everything else is fine, but the only problem with eating is really making him scratch his head. As an elite glutton produced by a big food empire, how can he tolerate eating 2 meals a day? You must know that when the buddies were working in the museum, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and even supper were all necessary. Although we can eat pure and natural game every day since we came to this age, we can't stand up and eat. Especially after getting this huge body, the daily demand for calories is more. So after this age, except for the few days when I started to lie on the sledge, the Stone Bear is always struggling these days fight against the stomach of constant protest. Threw the collected coal into the wooden house where he lived, and the Stone Bear took the fast horse and rode out of the tribe again. Of course, he followed them with Two Tails, Rabbit Mouth, and Hard Bones. Hard Bones is one of the few survivors of the Longhair cattle tribe, a few years younger than the Stone Bear and Kuima. Just like his name, this guy is a hard bone. In the battle of the Longhair cattle tribe, this little guy got 4 arrows on his body. Although it was not a critical point, he persisted without saying a word. As for the bunny mouth, the origin of the name is very simple, because this guy has a bunny mouth. But unlike the Hard Bones, the rabbit's mouth is from the Gaoshu tribe, and it is about the same age as the Hard Bones. Because of a mouth, this little guy is very unwelcome in the Gaoshu tribe, even if his parents don't like him very much. However, the previous generation of Kabul sacrifices and this generation of Kabul sacrifices to Hong-Yi treated him very well, and from time to time gave him some food. So the rabbit mouth has been Hong-Yi's small attendant since he was little. Since the Stone Bear became the guardian of the Red Cloud, the rabbit's mouth became the Stone Bear's little tail silently. Of course, the main reason was that the new big man had food to eat. That's right, as an elite whose soul is still a big food empire, Stone Bear really can't stand the food of the High Tree tribe, so he will quietly walk out of the tribe every afternoon, or go to the little river to fish in the west, or set rabbits in the wild to the north, or take a bow and arrow and go to the mountains to the south to shoot birds. Anyway, the other people in the Gaoshu tribe have 2 meals a day. But Shi Xiong can always eat 3 meals a day, and the extra meal is not bad. Thanks to the powerful hunting skills of this body, coupled with the many hunting skills that the Stone Bear has seen from the internet of later generations, every time the Stone Bear goes out, he can always harvest a lot of prey. In the beginning, Shi Xiong was busy working alone. Later, Kuima and Hard Bones joined in. Then 2 days ago, Rabbit Mouth also joined in. Shi Xiong finally got rid of the sad scene of being alone in the beginning. At least he continued to use it. The food captured the stomachs of the other 2 little guys. Because there are too many people, Stone Bears have been hunting in the mountains in the south or the wilderness in the north these days. Today's luck is very good. As soon as they entered the wilderness to the north, the group of them met a group of big guys who were eating leisurely. Elk, it's a herd of elk, the rabbit's mouth whispered in excitement. But even though his voice was very small, the alert deer raised their heads and looked around. However, after observing for a period of time, the number of the group was 10. 3 or 4 deer lowered their heads and continued to eat. At this time, it is difficult to find weeds or grass roots that can be eaten in the wild, because this wilderness is under the control of the High Tree tribe. There are usually few herbivores who dare to come here to eat. The food here for this group of hungry deer It is undoubtedly a great attraction. These deer are probably hungry, and then they migrated from other places. Shi Xiong turned his head and made a hush gesture, and several people immediately stopped speaking, and fell down one after another, hiding in the grass. The rabbit mouth is wrong, and I am afraid the entire North American Indians are wrong, because this group of deer is not elk, to be precise. This group of deer will be called Canadian red deer in later generations. This is a large deer that is second only to the moose in size. Apart from other things, it is just a lot bigger than the elk, but in this era, let alone Indians, even in later generations, many people are easy to mistake red deer and elk. The difference between later generations of Canadian red deer who only lived in the cold temperate zone is www.wuxiaspa.com. In this era, Canadian red deer can be found all over North America, and their tracks can even reach Mexico in Central America. I have to say that in this era, North America is definitely a paradise for wild animals. Although most North American Indians make a living by hunting, it is far from being able to compete with these particularly viable wild animals if they only count on the hunting of North American Indians. In this age, you are letting North American Indians hunt and kill with great effort. Most Indians who do not have hot weapons will never be able to hunt these wild animals to the point where they are endangered or even extinct. Only after the large-scale spread of hot weapons in North America, these large wild animals will be killed by humans and almost extinct. Before European colonists entered North America, the conservative number of bison living in the North American continent was estimated to exceed 60 million. These bisons have been hunted and killed by North American Indians for thousands of years. The number has not decreased, but in less than 200 years from the founding of the United States to the 20th century, more than 60 million bisons were mastered, of Americans almost extinct. Shi Xiong naturally wouldn't explain the difference between red deer and elk to these little friends behind him. He quietly stood up and found that he was now located more than 100 meters away from the group of red deer. In this position, even if Shi Xiong prides himself on being so powerful, he can throw the weighted bone spear in his hand so far, but he can't guarantee the accuracy of his head. So Shi Xiong made a quiet gesture to the little friends behind him, holding the specially weighted bone spear in his hand, bent over and covered by the weeds more than 1 meter high, and slowly approached the group of red deer. P.S. The new week has begun. I would also like to ask readers to greatly vote for Lao Mo with your recommendation votes. Lao Mo is very grateful. Chapter 25. The style of that spear. Eastern Cherokee is the largest tribe among North American Indian tribes that is closest to the 13 colonies in North America, and many Cherokee people now live in the colonies. Therefore, the Eastern Cherokee were one of the first Indian races to come into contact with European and American colonists. As recorded in the history books, those Vasicas who have just arrived in North America have gained the enthusiasm and friendship of the natives of North America, and those Vasicas who have just arrived know nothing about this vast land. It was under the leadership of these enthusiastic Indians that the Wasicas from Europe finally established a foothold on the east coast of the North American continent and created 13 colonies. Of course, the enthusiasm and friendship of the Indians also exchanged them with a lot of rare things, such as ironware, horses, cotton. The Eastern Cherokee are the large tribes that have the most contact with European colonists, but even so, they don't have much iron in their hands. Those European colonists are very clever. When they gain a foothold in North America and figure out the details of these aborigines, they will know what they can and cannot change when they exchange with these aborigines. Steel weapons and thermal weapons are usually strictly prohibited on the trade lists of the British, French, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, and Germans. After all, these European colonists also knew very well that the number of Native Americans in North America was far greater than them. If these natives had a lot of steel weapons or even thermal weapons, then the North American continent would definitely not have a place for them to stand. Therefore, most of the Eastern Cherokee fighters hold bone weapons or stone weapons. Is like the bone spear held by Shi Xiong in his hand. The spear head is made of a whole bison thigh bone, and in order to give full play to his strength, Shi Xiong put some counterweights on the spear of this bone spear, which caused his bone spear to be nearly twice as heavier than the bone spear of an ordinary Cherokee warrior. This bone spear weighs 15 to 6 kilograms, which is nearly 10 times heavier than the weight of the men's standard javelin at the Olympic Games later. But even so, thanks to the huge power contained in this body, Shi Xiong can throw this heavyweight bone spear as far as more than 100 meters when practicing bone spear throwing. It's just that at this distance, the bone spear thrown out has no accuracy. But even so, this distance still scared many soldiers of the Gaoshu tribe. With the sharp and terrifying spearhead of this bone spear, plus the weight of the bone spear itself, if it can pierce the vital prey within 50 meters, it would be an adult male bison of more than 2,000 catties, will be stabbed to death by a spear. Now, Shi Xiong is carrying this heavyweight bone spear, and is quietly approaching the group of red deer with the help of a cover of weeds. When it was about 60 meters away from the group of red deer, the deer that had always been on alert raised his head again alertly, and the stone bear knew that he could not get closer. Straightened up from the wild grass, the sharp bone spear was raised, and then Shi Xiong took a deep breath and looked at the deer that weighed at least 1,000 catties. He ran a few steps in the grass and crossed a distance of more than 10 meters in just a few seconds. The running stone bear opened the spear's right arm and twisted his body at the same time, and waited until he sprinted. At the highest speed, he let out a suffocation, stepped on the ground, turned around, and waved his arms. The strange power contained in the body instantly exploded, and the bone spear that had obtained the huge kinetic energy instantly left his hand, and the target was the deer more than 40 meters away. The alert-headed deer made an uneasy cry when the stone bear started to run up. The red deer who were following him raised their heads, and the two small red deer even started to run. After Shi Xiong's murderous muffled shout sounded, the head of the deer seemed to have suffered a huge shock, and Zijianzi ran away. But its response is really a bit late. The straight bone spear pierced the air in an instant, sending out a low whistling sound, like a white lightning, flying over a distance of more than 40 meters in less than a second, and then fiercely, he pierced the deer's side neck firmly and accurately. The huge kinetic energy carried by the bone spear, when the tip of the spear touches the neck of the deer, begins to transform into a huge piercing force in just a few milliseconds. Although the stout neck of the deer is powerful, it still cannot withstand it. The sharp tip of the spear. The 1-meter-long spearhead made of bison thigh bone is like a hot knife that has encountered cheese. It easily broke the skin of the side neck of the deer, and then continuously broke the muscles and blood vessels in just a few milliseconds. It runs through the entire neck of the deer in a smashing posture. And the huge kinetic energy carried in the bone spear was still not fully vented. Therefore, driven by the bone spear, the deer that had just ran for 2 steps leaned heavily to one side until the huge bone spear was directly pierced into the ground. This bone spear weighing 15 to 6 kilograms just so flew over a distance of more than 40 meters. I'm reading www.youcanchew.com forcibly nailed this huge red deer weighing more than 1,000 catties directly to the ground. Seeing this scene with his own eyes, the fast horse, the hard bones and the rabbit mouth, all subconsciously covered his neck. The guardian of the Kabul sacrifice is really amazing. It's a huge red deer. Usually, if the warriors of the tribe want to encircle and hunt such large-scale prey, no 5 or 6 people can absolutely do it. The red deer, especially the pair of giant horns on the top of the male red deer's head, are not a joke. A frightened red deer can easily pierce the body of any animal, including the bully. With the giant horns weighing more than 10 kilograms above its head, the black bears in the mountains and the gray wolves dominate the wasteland. Therefore, even black bears and hordes of gray wolves are not willing to provoke adult male red deer easily. But it was such a big deterrent that was nailed to the ground by the guardian with a spear. If the guardian's spear is pierced on a person, then you don't have to think about the consequences. The remaining red deer immediately rushed away and disappeared within a few tens of seconds. On the wilderness where they ate leisurely, only the deer that was still convulsing was left behind. A few people ran over in excitement, which was an out-and-out big gain. The red deer weighing more than 1,000 caddies is enough for everyone in the tribe to eat for several days. Standing in front of the red deer that was still twitching, Shi Xiong couldn't help but feel a little pain. It is estimated that the spear directly pierced the aorta of this red deer. Although there was a bone spear blocking the blood and did not spray out, it still gurgled across the ground. Deer blood is a great tonic, but it's wasted so vainly. What a pity. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.